Chapter 1938. There was such a thing. Chu Yang nodded. That's it. In the current situation, Yuan Shetu is also a junior. The enmity between you and him should also belong to the enmity between juniors in the martial world, right? Tai Badian was a little indignant. But now, Heavenly Emperor Mo Yun wants to avenge his son. What kind of logic is this? Chu Yang smiled bitterly and said, Tianhan, you have been an emperor for so many years in vain. If it was Qian who asked me, I can still feel that it's fate. But it's you who asked me. I'm really too surprised. You have undoubtedly overlooked a few important points. Tai Badian frowned. What important points? Chu Yang said, firstly, Yun Tian's original words were, martial world matters are for juniors to mess around. Unless it's a matter of life and death, the elders must not interfere. Chu Yang smiled lightly. There is a prerequisite, which is unless it's a matter of life and death. And now that someone has died, it naturally exceeds the scope of a matter of life and death. It is no longer restricted by this rule. This is the first point. Chu Yang stretched out a hand and stopped Tai Badian from speaking. He said, secondly, apart from Yuan Shetu, most of the people who died in Mo Yuntian's wave were experts of the older generation. Obviously, it's not limited to the younger generation. There must be a reason for someone to avenge them. Thirdly, the things you said are only applicable to the pugilistic world. Although the pugilistic world's sects apply this rule, Mo Yuntian's royal family and Mo Yuntian's identity do not belong to the pugilistic world. Although we know that they are violating the rules by doing so, no one will uphold justice for us. As long as Heavenly Emperor Mo Yun wants to come and avenge his son, he can avoid this rule. He can even ignore this rule. Chu Yang smiled bitterly. Although we know that the reason is on our side, the other party is in the wrong. But the other party is strong and powerful. We are powerless against them. Justice has never been in the hearts of people. Right and wrong only depends on strength. How can we distinguish between black and white? Tai Badian frowned deeply. That's right. Even if we put aside the difference in strength, even if we know that they are taking advantage of the rules to take revenge, we still want to refute them. Under the other party's theory, we can only stick to our own words and can't be separated. Not to mention that the other party won't talk reason with you at all before absolute strength. Logic is just a joke. Chu Yang said slowly, so we can only fight. This is the only way forward. A strong fighting spirit appeared on Chu Yang's face when he said the word, fight. Mo Tianji's words seemed to ring in his ears. The whetstone in the sky, let me sharpen my blade. I just don't know if it's because I've sharpened this knife, or is it going to grind my knife into pieces? The quality of this whetstone is very good, ha. Chu Yang thought in his heart. Then he laughed out loud. Who cares? Counter soldiers with arms and water with an earth weir. The worst-case scenario would be death. If a man died, his bird would face the sky. Nothing more. For the next 3 days of attachment, she was in utter misery, unable to die. Every day, he would be abused and ravaged by Lazy in all kinds of ways. But everyone could see that Lazy's technique was getting lighter and lighter. It was getting gentler and gentler. If it was tormenting him in the beginning, this would be a playful caress. In other words, Teacher Cat was almost at the end of his suffering. She seemed to have vented most of her anger. But every morning, Chu Yang and the others still got up in a hurry to hear Lazy's roar. The roar came from afar and shook the entire Chu clan compound. It was frightening. Those who heard it immediately woke up and decided not to make a second sound. Chu Yang and the others were naturally full of resentment. How could this girl be so energetic? Lightning Snake, Thunderblade and the others all came to Chu Yang and said, I really can't stand it anymore. If you have a way, please help Lazy to improve her cultivation. I really can't stand it. This reminded Chu Yang of something. And this might not be a bad solution. He would take drastic measures to deal with the problem. Even if there was something fishy, it was still his brother. Helping him improve his cultivation was also keeping the goodies within the family. As long as he succeeded, he might be able to solve the big problem once and for all. It was a good thing to help others and himself. So, He got up and went to look for Lazy after a while. When he went, it was almost morning. The breeze was gentle and the sky was clear. The weather was good. When he walked out of the small courtyard, he was surprised that he didn't hear any roars from inside. He couldn't help but be surprised. Is Lazy so awesome? In just a few days, he actually subdued that girl? He heard a low sigh coming from inside. It's so comfortable. It's really super cool. Chu Yang was stunned. What was a certain king of hell? When he heard the sound, he immediately became evil. Cough, cough, could it be? He first used his divine senses to check. If he really broke in and saw something he shouldn't see, it would be bad. Well, he finally saw the movement inside. Lazy was standing under a flower tree. It was autumn and the flowers on the tree had already withered. When the breeze blew, they fell. Lazy was dressed in white. She stood under the flower tree with her slim and graceful figure. She raised her head and closed her eyes, as if she was enjoying it very much. Obviously, she was enjoying this rare mood. The breeze blew gently and the flowers fell slowly. Lazy stood in the middle with her eyes closed. She was intoxicated from the bottom of her heart. This kind of artistic conception is really too beautiful. The legendary poetic and picturesque, immortal and dreamy, is probably nothing more than this. The ferocious catgirl's face actually showed some gentleness. No, it was a lot of gentleness. If one hadn't seen her true face, they would definitely think that she was a sentimental and talented beauty. The scene in front of his eyes was truly wonderful if he didn't take away a certain eyesore. Chu Yang had enjoyed the blessings of having multiple wives. His wives, girlfriends, and confidants were all devastatingly beautiful. But it seemed that he had never experienced such a wonderful scene before his eyes before. As for that eyesore, there was no doubt. Lazy stood aside with a bloody nose and a swollen face. She looked like she couldn't cry. She was like a stupid bear that had been beaten silly. She had a sad face and wanted to cry, but no tears came out. She filled a very disharmonious stroke in this almost perfect picture. Lazy was enjoying the endless intoxication with her eyes closed. Suddenly, she found that there was no wind. There was no wind. The withered petals on the tree naturally didn't fall with the wind. Lazy Cat waited for a while and found that there was still no wind. There were still no petals floating around her. She couldn't help but feel a little anxious. It was such a rare poetic transcendent mood, such a rare poetic mood. How good would it be if she could enjoy it more? She frowned and an idea came to her mind. She closed her eyes and shouted, "Lazy, come here, give me a kick." She thought, "Lazy, kick the flower tree. The flowers will fall and I can enjoy it again." What did you say? Lazy looked at her in horror. Give me a kick? Hurry up, I'm waiting. Hurry up. Lazy closed her eyes with a sweet smile on her face, waiting for the wonderful mood to come again. Are you sure? Are you really sure? Lazy looked at her in disbelief. How could someone make such a request? What are you talking about? Why are you dilly-dallying? What else can I use you for? Hurry up. Lazy suppressed the surging anger that was about to explode. Hurry up and give me a kick. Use some strength. Okay. He stuttered as he agreed. He felt a little helpless. What was this great aunt trying to do? But since she said so, how could he not do it? He didn't dare to disobey. So, he took 2 steps back and then another 2 steps back. Then he sped up, leaped into the air, and kicked Lazy's buttocks with great force. Lazy, who was immersed in this wonderful state of mind, was completely unprepared. She screamed subconsciously as she was kicked away. She flew into the air and crashed into the flowering tree with a loud bang. The flowering tree, which had brought her endless beautiful state of mind just a moment ago, was smashed into 2 halves. The upper half of the tree's crown flew out for more than 100 feet with countless colorful petals falling down. It landed on the ground, kicking up dust everywhere. The original charm could no longer be seen. Plop. Lazy was bounced back again and fell to the ground, prostrating on all 4s. Outside the courtyard, Chu Yang covered his eyes. Oh my God, I really can't bear to watch. Big brother, she asked you to kick the tree and help drop the petals? How did it become destroying a flower? He believed that any normal person with the ability to understand would not have misunderstood, but a certain cat had understood it in such a way. It had used all of its strength, and used all of its strength to destroy a flower. If you really want to destroy the flower, you should do it more thoroughly. If you don't kill the tiger, you will be devoured by the tiger. Sure enough, in the next moment, Lazy, who had regained her clarity of mind, completely exploded. She jumped up from the ground and roared. This roar shook the Chu clan's courtyard, the whole Wuxia city, and the two men present were shocked. Cat, you've got guts. You actually dared to hit me. You've really grown up. Good. You're really good. Good job. I'll fucking tell your grandchildren that you're good. Rather than anger, it would be better to say that the voice was filled with disbelief. Who would have thought that a certain cat, who had always been obedient and never fought back when scolded or beaten, would actually have such an iron-blooded side? Oh my God, I really misjudged him. I didn't expect him to be so ruthless. Facing the sudden change, Lazy, who did not know what was going on, trembled subconsciously. Her face turned pale. You asked me to kick. Chapter 1939. Did I ask you to kick me? Did I ask you to kick me? You bastard, I thought you had grown up, but it turns out. He did not explain himself. Lazy Cat might misunderstand that Greasy Cat was unwilling to endure her yelling. A desperate counterattack and ruthlessly destroying a flower would be more acceptable. At the very least, that was something only a man with vigor would do. However, the current situation was clearly a mistake made by a good-for-nothing. She was so angry that her liver hurt and her heart trembled. I asked you to kick the tree. What are you thinking about? You bastard, Greasy Cat was trembling all over. He took a few steps back and defended himself weakly. But you didn't make it clear. You're responsible too. Obviously, Greasy Cat did not understand women better than Chu Yang. At such a juncture, he still dared to defend himself and even tried to reason with a woman? This was a mistake on top of a mistake. He was hopelessly wrong. One could already imagine his tragedy. In a trance, Lazy Cat had already flown up. You didn't make it clear. You were unreasonable and cunning. You defended yourself with me. You kicked me. You've got guts. I'm going back to tell your father. He said you bullied me. He even dared to kick me. I'm going back to tell my father. He said you bullied me. He even dared to hit me. I'm going to kill you right now. You bullied me. You kicked me. Bang 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 bang. Bang 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 bang. A series of punching sounds were heard. How can you be like this? Is there any justice left? You really asked me to kick you. Even if I misunderstood, you're also partly responsible. Sob, sob, sob. Greasy Cat covered his head with one hand. He covered his crotch with one hand and cried aggrievedly. Sob, sob, sob. You can't be unreasonable. A certain cat was truly a piece of work. Until now, she still did not understand the situation and was still delusional enough to try to reason. It was really too amazing. Why didn't I notice this before? To think that Greasy Face is actually such a pig's head. I've really opened my eyes today. It's better if I don't hang out with him in the future. Maybe one day I'll be led into a ditch by him. Chu Yang, who was outside the courtyard, quietly left. If he were to go in now, Teacher Cat would only be beaten up even more miserably. It would be too horrible to look at. Behind him, the sound of hard blows continued to ring out. Farther and farther away. Bang bang bang. Bang bang bang. Bang. Afternoon. Chu Yang looked at Fishy Cat, whose face was all bruised and swollen. What is your fiancé's current cultivation level? Fishy grinned miserably. Heaven rank, upper rank. In any case, it's definitely higher than mine. Why can't my cultivation be higher? If only my cultivation was higher. How can I be so miserable? What's the use of letting a woman have such a high cultivation level? Boo! Chu Yang gritted his teeth. Brother Cat, we're all brothers. I really can't bear to see you like this. How about this? I'll give you something good to let you break through to upper rank heaven rank. You'll definitely be stronger than your fiancé. How about that? Ah? Is that true? That's great. Brother, you're my blood brother? Greasy Face's eyes instantly widened in surprise. If that's the case, I'll have the power to fight back. That's great, that's great. I'll let that woman know what it means to conquer. Chu Yang pulled Greasy Face into the courtyard mysteriously. That night, everyone came to watch the process of Greasy Face subduing his fierce wife after raising his cultivation level. Everyone's faces were tense. No one knew what they were thinking. However, everyone was very interested in this kind of open confrontation between a man and a woman, especially when the man won. Conquer. Hee, let's all learn what it means to conquer. As expected, Tai Budian and Wu Qianqian came together with Cat Xiaolian. Cat Xiaolian noticed the change in Greasy Face at first glance. The person most familiar with Greasy Face was Cat Xiaolian. Greasy Face stood not far away with his head held high and his chest puffed out. The way he looked at Cat Xiaolian was actually different from before. He seemed to be very eager to try it out. You actually raised your cultivation level? It's actually about the same as mine? A little deeper than mine? Not bad. Cat Xiaolian looked at Greasy Face in a fuss. Come here. Let me take a closer look. Greasy Face said in a strange voice. What? What did you say? The atmosphere was full of provocation. Cat Xiaolian was still surprised by a certain person's improvement. She said casually, I said to let you come over and take a closer look. Greasy Face puffed out his chest. I'm not going over. I'm not going over. Cat Xiaolian heard Greasy Face's words and was a little hesitant. What did you say to me? Greasy Face became even more arrogant. I said I'm not going over. Cat Xiaolian completely understood. She glared and stomped her feet in anger. Are you coming over or not? You want me to come over and I'll come over? Who do you think you are? I'm not going over. Say it again and you won't come over? I'll tell you who I am. Cat Xiaolian narrowed her eyes dangerously. The atmosphere gradually changed, and the atmosphere seemed to have reversed. Greasy Face's heart was beating fast. He subconsciously walked over hesitantly. He was still stubborn. Fine, I'll go over. Do you think I don't know who you are? What can you do about it? At this point, Chu Yang and the others who were in high spirits were already discouraged. Fuck, this bastard had already softened by 70%. Seeing him step forward, Cat Xiaolian did not say a word and started to attack him. Greasy Face resisted and yelled, I used to give in to you, and I couldn't beat you. Now I can beat you. I won't give in to you anymore. Chu Yang and the others perked up. Could it be that there was a chance? It was rare for Teacher Cat to be so strong-willed. Perhaps there would be a shocking reversal. Cat Xiaolian yelled, You dare to fight back? Greasy Face's arrogance was immediately dampened. He muttered, You hit me and I can't fight back? Don't you have any sense of justice? But his hands had already softened. Cat Xiaolian followed up with another attack, punching him again and again. He flew into a rage. Fight back again? Fight back again? Don't give in to me. Fight back. Greasy Face barely held on for a while. It was obvious that he could only parry and had no strength to fight back at all. You still dare to parry, right? When I go back, I'll tell your father. If you parry again, I'll tell my father. He'll say that you're bullying me. I'll let the two of them deal with you. Let's see how you're going to parry. Cat Xiaolian yelled. At this point, Greasy Face was completely defeated. He actually squatted on the ground during the battle, hugged his head with both hands, and cried, I won't parry anymore. Don't tell on me. Hit me, just hit me gently. Bang bang bang. Chu Yang, Lightning Snake, and the others were stunned for a long time. Immediately, they sighed together. Was this a matter of cultivation level? It seemed to have nothing to do with that at all. This guy was born to be henpecked, this illness. There was no cure. Chu Yang secretly rejoiced. Back then, he couldn't bear to give out something too good and didn't try his best to improve a certain cat's cultivation level. If he really gave it out, it would be a waste. It would be too embarrassing. Chu Yang and the others were dispirited. They sighed and shook their heads, leaving the table. They really couldn't bear to watch and were even angrier that he didn't fight back. How could they continue watching this? As for persuading them, forget it. Brothers, they should be thanking the gods that they didn't get it. How could they persuade them? They were really crazy. It had been 3 days. The space fusion in the tribulation space was still ongoing. He couldn't tell how far it had progressed. There wasn't even much movement. Chu Yang could only pray. Please finish the fusion before Mo Yuntian's men arrive. Otherwise, it would be too miserable for me. What Chu Yang didn't know was that in the thick night, in the distant horizon, there were 3 huge flying ships that pierced through the heavy night fog. They were like 3 prehistoric monsters, speeding toward the eastern royal heavens. There were at least 1,000 people on each flying ship. On the leading flying ship, an old man frowned and looked at the night fog in front of him with a heavy expression. He didn't say a word. The people behind him all had the same expression. That Chu Yang who dared to kill the crown must be captured alive. His Majesty said that he wanted him to experience all the pain in the world before he died. Tell me, how long more until we reach the eastern royal heavens? The old man didn't even turn his head and just asked. There's less than 20 hours left. Someone answered. There's less than 20 hours left. The old man had a strange expression on his face. He sighed softly. In less than 20 hours, I have to do something like this personally. Behind him, a strong man said carefully, General, this matter, why didn't you tell His Majesty back then? This matter is fundamentally the Crown Prince's fault. We are not in the right. Why did you? The old man closed his eyes. After a long time, he said, How do you know that I didn't report it? I asked the Prime Minister to report it, but the Prime Minister didn't show up the next day. I went to his residence to look for him but was told that the Prime Minister was recuperating. Do you understand? He is recuperating and not recuperating. That strong man couldn't help but tremble. I saw the Prime Minister's injuries with my own eyes. The old man closed his eyes and sighed deeply. The able-bodied man shut his mouth tightly. The surrounding people also lowered their heads and shut their mouths. The surroundings were completely silent. Since the Lord had seen it, then it must be true. Who was the Prime Minister? The second most important person in Mo Yuntian. He was second only to one person and above millions of people. There was only one person who dared to hit the Prime Minister in Mo Yuntian. As for who that person was there a need to guess? Even the Prime Minister was hit because of this. Then what about the others? There was no need to talk about them. Since that was the case, was it important to be reasonable or unreasonable? Chapter 1940. Everyone, return to your posts. 20 hours later, the battle may begin at any time. Everyone must be prepared and take a rest in advance. Perhaps, it will be a rare opportunity for us to have a good rest in the following period of time. Baidu search POM. The elder closed his eyes and said slowly, Isn't it just a mere Chu Yang? At most, there's Mo Yuntian and the remaining few people from the 3 sects who went to explore this time. What's the point of it? We actually need to be prepared for a long battle? Isn't this making a mountain out of a molehill? Someone said disdainfully. The elder looked over coldly. Bastard! That's Donghuang Heaven. Don't you know what kind of person Donghuang Heaven is? If Donghuang Heaven interferes in this matter, he doesn't even need to do it personally. He just needs to give the order and will be lucky to be able to escape unscathed. That person shuddered. At this point, no one dared to be presumptuous anymore. Speed up! The elder closed his eyes and gave the order. The flying boat continued to speed up in the night, heading towards a certain place in the vast darkness. The Chu clan compound. It was still peaceful at this moment. Chu Yang lay on the bed, hugging Tai Butian on his left and Wu Chanxian on his right. The room was filled with light and the 2 bodies were filled with seductive amorous feelings. Chu Yang lay on the bed comfortably after the passion and closed his eyes. However, even at this moment, Chu Yang could vaguely feel that there was a huge danger gradually approaching. Would he be able to make it through this time? Chu Yang really didn't dare to say that he could definitely do it. What was the thing that humans feared the most? The only universal answer was the unknown. Although the Heavenly Demon and the Dharma Supreme had amazing strength and Chu Yang had joined forces with them, there was a huge disparity in their actual strength. However, there was no fear at all. This was because regardless of whether it was the Heavenly Demon or the Dharma Supreme, no matter how strong they were, they had already exposed their abilities to the public. Their abilities had already been exposed and their trump cards had already been fully displayed. No matter how sharp and powerful they were, there were still ways to counter them. Only the unknown was unpredictable. Difficult to predict. Underestimating the enemy would only increase the time limit of one's defeat. Overestimating the enemy would only increase unnecessary pressure on one's side. Therefore, only an appropriate assessment would be the right way for a qualified leader to do things. And Chu Yang. Right now, he was making such an assessment. He didn't exaggerate the enemy's strength, but he also didn't underestimate the danger that the enemy might bring. Chu Yang suddenly felt a burst of turbulence in his consciousness at this moment. He suddenly felt a splitting headache. He was afraid that he would wake up the beauty. So, he endured it and didn't make a sound. Lord Sword Master. Something had happened. Something good has happened. The Sword Spirit said. Chu Yang's consciousness moved, and his mind entered the tribulation space. This time, they entered a vast expanse of whiteness. The change in the environment was secondary. What greeted them was a wave of extremely pure spiritual energy. Chu Yang almost suffocated. For example, oxygen was a good thing, but if you were suddenly given 10 times or 100 times more compressed oxygen, you wouldn't be able to survive. However, it can directly suffocate you to death, using oxygen to suffocate people to death. It sounded inconceivable, but it was absolutely possible. Chu Yang was currently facing such a situation. Pure spiritual energy was definitely a good thing under normal circumstances. But if it was too pure and there was too much of it, it would also make people feel unbearably weak. The fusion of the two spaces has been completed. Now, the tribulation space is upgrading with the power of the Medicine King space. The Sword Spirit said excitedly, after this upgrade, it will be a small thousand space like a small universe. Lord Sword Master, this is a joyous occasion. Really? Chu Yang felt that he had finally heard good news. It's not true. The Sword Spirit said, it turns out that the origin of this planet has another meaning. The Medicine King Palace didn't absorb all the spiritual energy here. There is still spiritual energy tens of thousands of times more hidden inside. This time, it was completely decomposed by the tribulation space because its grade was lower than the tribulation spaces. The spiritual energy has finally erupted. The fusion has just been completed. In such a short time, the great herbs and the holy crystals have all upgraded by one level. In the spiritual herb garden, the 3 elixir spirits have also upgraded by one level. The other elixirs are also growing rapidly. The Sword Spirit said, Lord Sword Master, this is just the beginning. If there are experts practicing here, they can completely improve their own strength during the upgrade of the space. They can improve by several times. Several times? Chu Yang's eyes lit up. Is there a limit to the number? How many people can it accommodate? The Sword Spirit said excitedly, in fact, the spiritual energy here is more or less too much. Even if there are thousands of people, it can still bear it. However, because we need to give them another independent space, the number of people can't be too high. It's best not to have more than 50 people at a time. Not more than 50 people. Chu Yang pondered. Yes, Lord Sword Master, it's better to give the benefits to our own people. Even if you want to give it to outsiders, you should give it to those whom you can completely trust. Although in terms of effectiveness, the people from a certain cloud sky might have the best effect, they still aren't your true subordinates. The Sword Spirit reminded. Chu Yang pondered. Among his own people, who was there that he could trust? At present, Tai Budian, Wu Qianqian, Madame Mei, Xie Denfeng, Huyan Aobua and the other sisters-in-law were definitely trustworthy. They were the standard of his own people. As for the others, Wang Dao and Fishy Lai were also not a problem. In addition, Duan Tsangkong, Lightning Snake and the other 2 sabers could also be counted in the list of people he could absolutely trust. As for the others, for example, the people from the 3 big sects who had just come over, he was a little worried. Counting over and over again, it seemed that there were less than 20 people who could be trusted. And Brother Tiger was also included. Chu Yang frowned. The supply exceeded the demand. Lord Swordmaster, it's better to let them in quickly. If it's too late, I'm afraid that the spiritual energy will be absorbed by the tribulation space in reverse. At that time, it's really useless. We can only hide it. It's better to create a few experts now. The sword spirit urged. All right. Chu Yang made a prompt decision and made up his mind. On this night, Chu Yang called for an emergency assembly. First, he ordered Lightning Snake and the other 2 to choose the most reliable and loyal subordinates of his 20 people. Although the 3 of them didn't know what the Manor Lord's intention was, they knew that there must be a reason, so they immediately went to choose. In this space, the sword spirit used his unique landlord power to quickly establish various independent spaces that weren't connected to each other. Chu Yang notified Wang Dao in advance and asked him to hurry back. Then he sent Xian Tai Butian and Wu Qianqian inside. Next were Brother Tiger, Huyan Aobua and the others. Fishy Lai, Lazy Cat and the others. After confirming that everyone had entered, the sword spirit specifically assigned them inside. The sword spirit was the one who knew Chu Yang the best. Naturally, the best positions were given to Tai Butian, Wu Qianqian and Brother Tiger. Then, Huyan Aobua and the others. Then, Fishy Lai and Lazy Cat. The next position was given to Duan Songkong, Wang Dao and the others. As for Lightning Snake and the other 2, they were arranged in relatively equal positions by the sword spirit. As for his subordinates, they could only be placed in the outermost area. But, even in the outermost area, the spiritual energy was so abundant that it was unbelievable. Furthermore, it was growing at a rapid rate at every moment. Lightning Snake, Thunderblade and the others were ecstatic. Even now, it was at least 100 times denser than the core area of any big sect or super sect in the world. And it was still increasing. It was increasing rapidly. In other words, 1 day of cultivation here was almost equivalent to 1 year of cultivation outside. And this range was still increasing. Looking at it, 1 day of cultivation here might be equivalent to 10 years of cultivation outside, of course. The outside world here was roughly equivalent to the core cultivation area of a super sect. The sword spirit was smiling disdainfully. 10 years? 10 years was nothing. When the spiritual energy was completely released, it could increase your cultivation by several times. They've all gone in. What about me? Where did you arrange for me? Chu Yang asked excitedly. You don't have to come in. I didn't prepare a place for you at all. The sword spirit said strangely, this space is in your body. If you don't come in, it's completely inclusive. You can enjoy everything in the space. You don't have to come in. Also, can you have some common sense? You're the one who benefits the most from your own things. I don't even want to talk nonsense with you. You're too ignorant and have no common sense. Chu Yang was relieved. He smiled from ear to ear. Like that? That's great, that's great. So what if I'm ignorant and have no common sense? I'm happy, I'm excited, I'm proud. Everyone went in and focused on cultivation. Because the spiritual energy was so dense, they were in an environment where they would be suffocated at any time if they didn't cultivate with all their might. The spiritual energy was now so dense that it had turned into water droplets, dripping down continuously. It looked like it would form a solid state in a short while. In such an environment, they had no choice but to cultivate with all their might. To put it bluntly, not cultivating with all their might was an act of courting death. If they were suffocated to death by the dense spiritual energy, it would be a terrible way to die. Chu Yang's situation was the same. In fact, it was even a little exaggerated. He could clearly feel that his dantian was madly absorbing the spiritual energy. It was filling up at a speed visible to the naked eye. It looked like it was about to be filled. This was not the time when he was at the earth level or the heaven level. Chu Yang was now at the saint level. The amount of spiritual energy needed to fill his dantian was no longer the same as before. But even with such a premise, it was about to be filled up. Chu Yang understood his own situation through inner vision. He couldn't help but be overjoyed. Then he suddenly heard the sword spirit exclaim, What's going on? Then, Chu Yang only felt his mind shake with a loud bang. A mouthful of blood spurted out. Then Chu Yang was shocked to find that he had lost contact with the space. Although the dense spiritual energy was still pouring into his body, he couldn't feel the existence of the space at all. I have to ask everyone a question. Now, Chu Yang's escape route has been cut off by me. Xue Leihan has gone back. Those who stayed behind didn't understand Xue Leihan's intentions and wouldn't help Chu Yang. The space has been cut off by me. The sword has been restricted by me. Its powerful sword soul can't come out. Chu Yang has to face an opponent from the whole world. To be honest, I've already forced Chu Yang into a dead end. To be more realistic, I can't think of how Chu Yang can deal with it myself. When I released this chapter, I was at my wit's end. Above, if I lie, may the heavens punish me. And I have to break through tomorrow. This deadlock. Do you have any good ideas? Chu Yang's current situation is just like mine. I can't break through. I admit defeat in the monthly votes list. But if I break through, I still have a chance. Chapter 1941. Chu Yang turned pale with fright. This is from P. Not only could he not sense the tribulation space, he could not contact Tai Budian and the others. He could not even send messages from the sword spirit. If it were not for the spiritual energy that was still pouring in, Chu Yang would almost think that the tribulation space had disappeared or collapsed. In addition, another shocking change occurred. The calamity sword suddenly trembled. Chu Yang felt that the calamity sword seemed to be undergoing some kind of change. Although it could still hide in the dantian, it lacked the agility it had in the past. It seemed to have become more sluggish. The tribulation sword. The shadow sat up immediately. What's going on? Why did the sword suddenly be sealed? That's not right. How can there be anyone in this world who has the ability to seal the tribulation sword? To seal the tribulation sword, one needs all the energy of a greater thousand world. And it's just a possibility. There shouldn't be such an expert in the heavenly loop. Then he rushed out, intending to see what was going on. But he immediately realized that he could not leave. He could not help but feel anxious. What's going on? Even I can't go out? Could it be that all the energy of a world has been poured into the tribulation sword? This should be a good thing. But when the two formed spaces fuse with each other, it will definitely cause the energy to be poured in. It will cause the circuit to be temporarily sealed under the backlash of the energy limit? Or is there some other situation? Under normal circumstances, it's not a big deal. We just need to sort it out for 300 to 500 years. But now, what should we do? Now is the delicate time when that little guy has caused a great disaster. Not to mention 300 to 500 years, he will be in danger for 3 to 5 days. I was still thinking of helping him to hold the fort, but he sealed the sword and me at this moment. Isn't he just courting death? What the hell is that little guy doing? A certain shadow paced back and forth anxiously. But there was nothing he could do. In terms of strength, apart from the two of them, who else in the entire universe and the primordial world can trap me? But the problem now is that I'm sealed in the tribulation sword, and the entire tribulation space is sealed. This is equivalent to the power of the Lord wrapping around me because of an external force. Although it's not the Lord's intention, I still can't break through. But what should I do? I'm going to die. Chu Yang stared at the calamity sword in astonishment. His heart was filled with disbelief. Suddenly, he felt his entire body turn cold. The current situation was that not only could they not enter the tribulation space, but they also could not enter it. He couldn't even sense it. He had completely lost contact with it. In other words, the people inside couldn't come out for the time being. Many helpers were inside, such as Brother Tiger, Sandao, and these people were the ones that Chu Yang could truly trust. Moreover, Tai Butian and Wu Qianqian were also inside. He didn't even have anyone to discuss it with. Everything could only be shouldered by him alone. The tribulation space, which had never made a mistake before, had made such a big mistake at such a critical moment. He was about to face a mountain of pressure and lose all his support. This feeling of extreme frustration and depression was indescribable. And Chu Yang was now filled with this feeling. Chu Yang heaved a long sigh. That's good too. If they were outside, they wouldn't have been able to escape. I'm really worried. If that's the case, no one will be able to find them. I'm the only one facing the vast world, but I'm also a lone wolf with no fear. We live and die together. The children had already been sent away. Their future was bound to be bright and brilliant. Tai Bu Tian and the others, as well as his brothers' wives. The people he cared about were strictly protected by the tribulation space. As long as he didn't die, they would be safe. Even if he died, they might not be in danger. Chu Yang was also relieved. Suddenly, a kind of lone wolf fierceness rose in his heart. No matter how difficult it was, it couldn't be harder than the 8,000 miles that he had fled for his life in Great Zhao. Back then, he had the strength of an ant, yet he was able to overcome many difficulties. Now, he was tens of thousands of times stronger than before. Would he still be afraid? At this moment, he was no longer living for himself. He was living for everyone. He could not fail this time. Failure meant death. Perhaps, if he failed, the tribulation space would also collapse? This was something that couldn't be guaranteed. Perhaps it was due to excessive pressure, but Chu Yang's mind slowly calmed down. With a thought, the tribulation sword appeared in his hand again. Although the tribulation space was blocked for some reason, the tribulation sword could still be taken out from his dantian. Looking at the tribulation sword in his hand, Chu Yang took a deep breath. Old friend, you're the only one who's with me now. From now on, we're going to face the biggest challenge of our lives. We have to get through it together. The tribulation sword trembled and emitted a cold light again. Previously, because of the sudden change, even the tribulation sword had lost its former brilliance. Perhaps it had sensed Weapon Master Chu Yang's determination, but the tribulation sword shone with a cold light again and regained its former glory. Chu Yang smiled softly and felt inexplicably gratified. It turned out that he wasn't alone. Although he didn't have the sword spirit as his companion and didn't have the tribulation space, he still had the tribulation sword. With this sword in hand, he dared to challenge the world. No matter how many horses and thousands of soldiers came, he would face them alone with his sword. He could clearly feel the crazy pure spiritual energy that was constantly flowing into his meridians. It made him feel that he could fight against any opponent. No matter what kind of loss there was, the spiritual energy could be replenished instantly. This was the only benefit left to him after the tribulation space was sealed. And the tribulation sword seemed to be receiving the constant cleansing of this surging spiritual energy. It was slowly changing, or rather, evolving and improving. After the previous auction, almost all of the rare metals that Chu Yang had obtained were swallowed by the tribulation sword one by one. The only thing left was the Heart of Stars. Now, the quality of the tribulation sword could be said to have improved by several levels. Compared to before, it was far from being the same. Chu Yang even faintly felt that the tribulation sword's transformation was not complete. Although the power of the tribulation sword now was already very terrifying, but there should be something else. He carefully checked his current equipment. Other than the tribulation sword, there were less than 100 small flying daggers. There was also a super version of the heavy pill and a dozen or so incomplete heavy pills. Lastly, there was also a small gourd of Shui Leihan's wine in his space ring. Fortunately, he had brought such a space ring with him for the sake of deceiving others. There were also a few million purple cloud coins and some ordinary goods in it. These were all he had now. If he didn't have these, he was afraid that he would really be at a loss. In the past, there was Tai Budian to take care of everything for him. Inside, there was the sword spirit to take care of everything. Outside, there was Duan Cankong to take care of all the external affairs. When did he ever need to worry about anything? Now, he probably had to do all these by himself. Those who didn't manage the house didn't know the cost of firewood. What he had now was definitely a lot in a normal sense. But in the face of such a bad situation, it was absolutely a drop in the bucket. It seemed that it was very likely that he would be fatally injured dozens of times in a day. How much of an effect would this little bit of medicine have? What's more, it wasn't just Chu Yang here. There were also the elites of the two big sects outside. Ignore them and take care of himself? Chu Yang couldn't care less about what others did, but he couldn't take the initiative to abandon these people. Even if he knew that they didn't really want to surrender, he still couldn't abandon them all. Early morning. Chu Yang walked out in high spirits. The people of the two big sects had already woken up. They were still doing their jobs, patrolling and practicing. Some of them had calm expressions, some of them had gloomy expressions, and some of them had fearful expressions on their faces. As for those who looked calm, Chu Yang noted them down one by one. These people didn't panic in the face of danger. Their temperament was very good. If there was a chance in the future, they might be of great use. As for those who looked gloomy but still maintained their determination, they had obviously made up their minds to die. They were prepared to face the worst situation. These people could be sacrificed. As long as they still had strength, they would try their best to protect them. As long as they could get their approval, they would be loyal to the death. As for the 1/3 of people who were anxious, Chu Yang didn't consider it at all. These people were very likely to be the first wave of betrayals when faced with the enemy. Not to mention that they couldn't be put in an important position, they even had to be careful in case they turned against them. Chu Yang waved his hand, coughed, and gathered everyone together. Everyone looked at him in confusion. They didn't know the intention of this temporary master. Well, I'm here to announce something. I've sent Lightning and the others to open up an absolutely safe place for us to hide in at a critical moment. Chu Yang was calm and composed as he faced everyone's gazes. He spoke with fervor and assurance. He said with a heavy tone, "Their goal is an absolutely safe place. The battle we're about to face will undoubtedly be very dangerous. But even at the most dangerous point, there will still be a way out for everyone. Even if it may not be a way out, it can give everyone a chance to breathe." Everyone was shocked. The people here were all elites of Mo Yuntian and Mo Yuntian's two big sections. No one would give it to them for free. If Chu Yang told them that Lightning Snake and the others left to seek a path of survival for everyone, no one would believe it. Although Lightning Snake and the others' strength was not bad, but compared to these people, they were at most at the level of a wanderer. What path of survival could they seek? But seeking a way out and fighting for a chance to live was much more realistic. As the saying goes, a crafty rabbit has 3 burrows. No matter big or small, when faced with a life and death situation, they would try their best to seek a way out for themselves. Even if it was just a temporary struggle at death's door, it was extremely difficult. Now there was an extra way out. This was undoubtedly the good news that everyone wanted to hear the most. Chapter 1942. So this trip will be very difficult for them. Chu Yang said slowly, "For the sake of safety. From now on, no one is allowed to inquire about them. Even if you meet them face to face, you have to pretend not to know them. Does everyone understand?" Understood. Everyone's face faintly showed a trace of joy. At this moment, any opportunity was good. There's one more thing. Last night, I sent away my 2 wives and many people in the inner residence. Chu Yang said slowly. Everyone was in an uproar. Actually, no matter how careful Lightning Snake and the others were, there would always be a certain amount of movement leaked out. Mo Yuntian and the others did not know that there might be movements in the inner residence, but they did not expect that everyone in the inner residence would disappear in an instant. But now, the result was that Chu Yang's family was all sent away. This result inevitably caused Mo Yuntian and the others to feel uneasy. Chu Yang had previously claimed that he would stand together with everyone against a common enemy and work together to resist the Mo Yuntian imperial family. But at this juncture, he actually sent his family away without any prior notification. It was obvious that he lacked confidence. Once the battle started, would he really be as fearless as before? Does everyone not approve of my action of sending my family away? Chu Yang did not hide anything and went straight to the point. The young experts of Ironsword sect said in a low voice, "We also do not wish to think of Villa Master Chu this way. But Villa Master's action is really difficult to dispel our doubts. Can Villa Master give us a reason to accept it? The reason is very simple and very simple. They do not have the ability to defend themselves. Forcing them to stay will only become an unnecessary burden. Can my reason be accepted by everyone? Chu Yang said slowly. Is that so? We can accept Villa Master Chu's reason. But, can we also think that Villa Master Chu did this because he did not have full confidence in fighting against the enemy? The young man said. Indeed. Facing the future of Mo Yuntian, I really do not have the confidence to protect everyone, especially my wife and those in the inner residence who are abnormally weak. But, everyone has noticed another thing. Chu Yang said. Another thing? What is it? Villa Master, please enlighten us. I think that if I didn't tell you, you would at most know that the lightning serpent and the others entered the inner residence for some reason and then went missing, but you wouldn't know that everyone in the inner residence had safely evacuated, right? This is indeed the case. Be careful, everyone must be very surprised. How can those people leave without a sound and without leaving a trace? Indeed, are you willing to share it with us? Of course not. This is one of my final trump cards. Although they were currently in a cooperative relationship. But you are not enough for me to reveal my heart to you. I believe everyone can understand. Well, we're all on the same side now. Manor Lord, there's no need to be so careful. Now that we know that we have such a trump card, won't we be even more determined to fight against the enemy? That does make sense. However, this force of mine will only be used at the most critical juncture. That's all I can say. Everyone couldn't help but feel a burst of joy in their hearts when they heard this. Chu Yang wasn't stingy in admitting that he had another tyrannical hidden force in his hands. And this force could silently take away those people under the watchful eyes of everyone. This force was indeed quite impressive. Okay, enough of the small talk. Now, let's start to assign tasks. Chu Yang nodded slowly. I want to divide the remaining people into groups again. Everyone must be cautious. Only by working together can we overcome the difficulties together. Trust can only be gained from getting along with each other. It won't come out of thin air. Chu Yang had actually painted a big picture out of thin air by making the mysterious disappearance disappear. It was not only reassuring, but also confusing the enemy. No matter which point it was, if someone betrayed and was forced to confess, it would only lead the enemy completely astray after confessing. And this was something that Chu Yang was happy to see. Yes, understood. The original subordinates of Thunderbolt, Wild Blade and Giant Spirit Blade stepped forward collectively. Well, you 200 people will form a team. Be on standby at any time. The usual task is to disperse to various parts of Purple Cloud City to inquire about information. As long as you get any relevant information, you must report it immediately. I don't want to see anyone disobeying orders, understand? Chu Yang first gathered these people together. More than 200 big men accepted the order. Okay, you can go back and disguise yourselves. Immediately spread out to inquire about information. It's best if only you know what you look like. Even your closest brothers can't know. Ensure your own safety and the reliability of your sources of information. Yes. Go. Boom, the 200 people dispersed in an uproar. Chu Yang looked at the people of the two big sections. Next is our side. About 400 people. Now, I want to reorganize the sections. I hope everyone can cooperate. Yes, Manor Lord. Can you? Chu Yang pointed out one by one. Those who could maintain a calm face and have their own opinions were picked out. Chu Yang looked and sighed in his heart. Only 45 people. Such responsible, insightful and strong-willed people, even in such a team full of experts, were really too rare. Only 45 people were picked out of a team of nearly 400 people. This ratio was a little hard to accept. One must know that these people were the elites of their sections. But their temperament was not enough. It was really regrettable. All of you follow me. Once the battle starts, everyone will fight side by side. Chu Yang ordered. Yes. The second team, you. Chu Yang called out one by one again. This time, he called out those who were gloomy and had the will to die. These people did not hesitate to fight. They were not afraid of fighting. But in their hearts, they had already determined their fate, death. They were equivalent to walking corpses. For such people who had the will to die, no matter how eloquent Chu Yang was, he could not make them have the will to live. On the contrary, if they could escape from death, it would be possible to rekindle their hope. But now, Chu Yang really did not have any certainty that he could bring them back from death. But if he let them all mix together, then this kind of infinitely negative mentality was bound to greatly affect the others. So Chu Yang simply put them in a separate team. He would see how the future battle went and what the result was before he made a decision. Your team, no matter when the enemy comes, you have to be the first batch to go up. If one dies, it's worth it. If two die, it's worth it. The more you die, the more you earn. Chu Yang said. Chu Yang's words were very straightforward. No matter how beautiful his words were, they had no meaning to these people. Anyway, these people were already jittery. They basically could not sleep or rest. Once there was any movement, they would immediately gather without shouting. Being the first batch to go up against the enemy would, on the contrary, completely destroy their jittery mood. Even if he died, his death would still be worth it. Anyway, they were going to die. It was better to make the most of their deaths. This group of people who had the will to die. There were as many as 170 people. The last 100 or so people left. Chu Yang sighed. You will be the second echelon reserve team. The 4 teams were all assigned. Chu Yang gave them their tasks one by one. For the sake of the 45 people. Everyone was deep in thought. With a command, everyone dispersed. Only the 45 people remained by Chu Yang's side. Manor Lord, I want you to tell me the truth. Is there really such a way out? Frost Ice Sect's chief elder, Bai Yuqin, asked with a smile. The others were also looking at Chu Yang, waiting for his answer. If I say there is, will you really believe it? If I say there isn't, won't you be suspicious? So, no matter whether there is or not, you have to believe that there is. Chu Yang said seriously. You should understand what such a way means. What it means for fighting spirit and morale. I'll tell you one last time. There really is such a way. Yes. Bai Yuqin nodded. I admire Manor Lord's arrangement from the bottom of my heart. I only have one question. How did Manor Lord distribute us so clearly? Chu Yang said indifferently, I have eyes. Iron Sword Sect's youth contestant, Che Shuchu, who was the one who asked Chu Yang a question before, looked at Chu Yang with some admiration. Having eyes, one could observe. This was something that anyone could do. But it was rare to see someone like Chu Yang, who could divide these people into 3 groups according to their habits, morale, and so on in just a few days. This eye of discernment was really too sharp. This was because he was able to analyze every single person's mentality clearly. Although it was just a simple division, people with discerning eyes could see the beauty of Chu Yang's division. He could gather the most elite people and make them even more elite. He could clear out those with unstable thoughts and move them to another group. In this way, he could ensure the purity of the group to the greatest extent. Moreover, he divided them into different groups. Although it was somewhat unfair in a certain way, he could gather the most powerful force in this kind of extremely dangerous situation. They could work together to get through this difficult situation. No matter who it was, it would be impossible for them to use this power better than Chu Yang. It was close to noon. While they were talking, everyone suddenly realized that Manor Lord Chu's expression changed. Then a deafening sound rang out. Manor Lord Chu seemed to have gathered all the strength in his body and let out a world-shaking fart. A super loud fart. The surrounding 40 people all had strange expressions on their faces. They wanted to cover their noses, but they felt embarrassed. However, this matter was extremely puzzling. How could someone with such cultivation not be able to control this? Besides, if you want to fart, just fart. Do you have to make it sound like an earthquake? It's just a fart. Do you have to use so much strength? Then they saw Manor Lord Chu frown. His face was heavy as he muttered, Not good. Not good? Chapter 1943. Broken? What's broken? For a moment, everyone's imagination ran wild. This is from P. Could it be that he accidentally spilled out a big piece of it? Looking at the sound just now, it seems very likely. Everyone's expression was strange. They all held their breaths, ready to run at any time. If it's true, it's better to be prepared early. Chu Yang stood up with a bang and walked out in big strides. Everyone was nervous and thought to themselves, "Hold on, Villa Master, you must hold on. You must hold on until you reach the place of reincarnation of the 5 grains. Then, you must at least hold on until you get out of this room. Please." Although everyone was an elite, there was still a difference in strength. Finally, someone couldn't help but take a breath because he had held his breath for too long. Unexpectedly, he found that the hall was full of unusually pure spiritual energy. That person suddenly opened his eyes wide. Damn. What's going on? Villa Master seems to have just farted, but there's actually such a rich spiritual energy? Suddenly, this expert felt that his thoughts were in a mess. After a while, everyone who was constantly recovering their breath also found something strange. Hey, our hall doesn't seem to be smelly. Why is it full of such rich spiritual energy? What's going on? Villa Master's farting actually gathered all the spiritual energy here? Then, they saw a ray of light break through the air, and with a swish, it entered Villa Master Chu's body. Villa Master Chu's body suddenly froze. He was motionless. It seemed that he had encountered something unbelievable. Villa Master. Everyone was shocked. Did someone sneak attack him? Just now, it was clearly a sharp sword energy. Chu Yang slowly turned his head, and his face looked like he was crying and laughing at the same time. He muttered to himself, "This is bad. What should I do?" Everyone was confused. What's bad? There's such a rich spiritual energy in this hall. It's obviously a good thing. In such a remote place like Wuxia City, there's not much pure spiritual energy to absorb. Why did he say it was bad? Others didn't know the whole story, but Chu Yang himself was clear about it. Rich and pure spiritual energy may be an opportunity for others, but for a certain king of hell, it's really not better than poison. As the saying goes, when it rains, it pours. When a broken boat encounters headwinds. When a person is down on their luck, even drinking cold water can get stuck in their teeth. Even a fart can dislocate their heel. Isn't Chu Yang like this now? The loud sound just now was a big fart. It was because the surging spiritual energy had suddenly reached the highest level. Unfortunately, Chu Yang's meridians were perfect and flawless, and he had nowhere to vent them. So, at the moment when Chu Yang wasn't ready, he found a relatively smooth channel to vent them out. If it weren't for Chu Yang's quick reflexes and easy control of his muscles, he would have been dead by now. It was as if he was about to spit out everything else. But at that moment, Chu Yang didn't even have the time to be embarrassed. Because he could clearly feel that as the power of this seal grew stronger and stronger, that long sword formed of the aura sword stabbed into the peak of infinite boundless mountain. Suddenly, it disintegrated. It turned into a sword energy and flew back. This caught Chu Yang off guard. Shui Leihan's cultivation had personally condensed energy into a sword. It was actually completely disintegrated by the power of space. Chu Yang had originally planned to wait until he confirmed that Mo Yuntian's men had really arrived before he completely detonated the soul-suppressing stone and then take advantage of the chaos. But now, Mo Yuntian's men hadn't arrived yet. The suppressing longsword formed by the aura sword had actually disappeared first. What kind of logic was this? Could it be that this Heaven Imperial Court is so incompatible with me that I can't do anything as I wish? This change caused Chu Yang's overall plan to be completely in vain. At such a critical moment, he detonated it prematurely. In the current situation, all his external help was gone, and the life-saving tribulation space was also gone. The soul-suppressing stone that he had originally planned to use was also brought forward. Chu Yang inexplicably felt a sense of defeat, as if the heavens wanted him to die. If Chu Yang knew that even Shui Leihan wasn't here now, and had already gone back because of something, Chu Yang would probably feel that there was no hope. Even if he didn't break down, he would be even more depressed. But speaking of which, A certain king of hell was still very ruthless. The more you force me into a dead end, the more I want to break through. The more you oppress me, the more I want to fight back. At this moment, facing such a desperate situation, isolated and without help, and even his biggest trump card had been inexplicably taken away, this kind of heroic spirit of his was completely aroused. Fuck! Chu Yang spat out a mouthful of saliva fiercely. His face was a little ferocious. Is Mo Yuntian really that scary? Watch me turn his world upside down single-handedly. Those more than 40 people looked at Chu Yang's evil and fierce eyes at this moment and were somewhat amazed. To be honest, even in such a desperate situation, to still be able to spout such nonsense, even if he didn't know life and death, this kind of recklessness had already reached a considerable level. Right at this moment, a strong wind suddenly blew in midair. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. A few small trees were uprooted from afar and flew into the sky with a whoosh. In an instant, the sky actually darkened, and the sun and moon no longer shone. An unprecedentedly strong murderous aura suddenly filled the whole world. The hearts of Chu Yang and the rest all thumped. Quite a number of people's faces instantly turned black. Leaping into the sky, they saw somewhere in the south far away, there were 3 colossal objects that were currently flying over here slowly. Seemingly slow, but in fact, it was fast to the extreme. In just a blink of an eye, the scene already arrived above their heads. Immediately after, they crossed Purple Cloud City and landed somewhere outside the city. It's Mo Yuntian's flying ship, they're here. Iron Sword Sex candidate Che Shuchu's usually calm face suddenly turned pale at this moment. His eyes stared straight at these 3 colossal objects, and his voice actually trembled somewhat. This is the special flying ship of Mo Yuntian's royal family's elite Mo Yun guards. His Excellency Heavenly Emperor Mo Yun actually directly dispatched the most elite Mo Yun guards. He really thinks too highly of us. Manor Lord, this time, we're probably doomed. Che Shuchu took a deep breath and tried his best to control himself, making himself look a little calmer. But his voice was already trembling uncontrollably. Outside, there were exclamations coming over continuously. That was other people also discovering the arrival of Mo Yuntian's flying ship. An unprecedented atmosphere of panic and despair suddenly spread out. Before Mo Yuntian's people arrived, everyone more or less still had some hope in their hearts. But now, at this moment, it was already completely hopeless. Mo Yun guards out, the world was like ink. Slaughtering the world, the sun and moon were colorless. Mo Yun guards, the peak combat power directly under Heavenly Emperor Mo Yuntian's command. Mo Yun guards? Are they very powerful? Chu Yang's eyes looked at those 3 flying ships landing heavily and asked in a low voice. More than powerful. Che Shuchu laughed bitterly. Wanting to become an Mo Yun guard, the requirements are actually very simple. First, the cultivation must at least reach peak saint level and above. Third, absolute loyalty to Heavenly Emperor Mo Yun himself. Third, everyone must be death warriors, ready to die at any time. The combat power of the Mo Yun guards, in terms of the entire Mo Yun Tian, is the peak. They are never the best, but the destruction they can cause is definitely the most terrifying. Che Shuchu said, Mo Yun guards. Always dressed in black, expressionless, like zombies descending to the mortal world. But between each other, they have a way of distinguishing between each other that others can't understand. No one can sneak in, and no one can't be recognized by the other party. Their army is a huge whole. When one person dies, everyone will sense it. Even if they are scattered in every corner of the world, as long as an order is given, they will perfectly assemble in a designated area at the fastest speed. No one will be delayed, unless the delayed person is already dead. Mo Yun guards never follow the rules of the martial world. Their mission is only to kill. Killing without any principles, only killing according to orders. Chu Yang's face sank bit by bit. If faced with such an unreasonable opponent, the only way was to stop vomiting and fight. There wasn't even the slightest space for mediation. Because they wouldn't even talk to you. Mo Yun guards can't be here purely, right? Chu Yang said solemnly, no matter if it's the regular army or the Mo Yun guards, as long as they go out on a mission, there will always be a unified commander, right? Just like us, there must be a leader who gives orders. Don't the Mo Yun guards have that? Che Shuchu said, they definitely have that, but now we can't be sure at all who led the Mo Yun guards here. Roughly estimate how many of them are here? Can you make a rough estimate? Chu Yang looked at the huge flying boat. His eyes were shining. The aura on his body was also getting sharper and sharper. If such a flying boat is really full of people, each boat can hold at least 5,000 people. Or even more. Che Shuchu looked at the few people beside him with a somewhat listless gaze. He said with a bitter smile, this is the authentic strength of the royal family. With our current strength, we can at most fight one person. Anyone who faces more than 2 people at the same time will be in danger of dying, Bai Yuchen said slowly. Unfortunately, we have no way out now. Even if we can't beat them, we have to fight with all our might. Under such circumstances, there's absolutely no hope of begging for mercy on our knees. The moment you kneel, your head will fall to the ground. That's for sure. Everyone's expressions gradually changed from fear to determination, and their eyes became more and more scorching. That's right. Instead of kneeling and dying, it's better to fight vigorously. Even if there's a great disparity in strength, so what? Whether or not you dare to fight is the heart of a man, the soul of the martial world. Chu Yang said in a low voice, all of you stay here and don't act rashly for the time being. I'll go and observe. If someone comes to attack the Chu clan compound, then everything will be done according to the previous arrangement. Elder Bai, after I go, I'll leave full authority here to you, Chu Yang said to Bai Yuchen. Bai Yuchen sighed softly. I'll do my best. Good. Chu Yang didn't say anything else. He flew up and rushed out of the city. The direction he was heading was actually the direction of the 3 flying boats. Chapter 1945. Is he courting death? He's like a mantis trying to stop a chariot. An iron sword sect expert muttered as he looked at Chu Yang's back. At such a time, even if you couldn't avoid it, you had to try your best to avoid it. How could you send yourself to your doorstep? Does our Villa Master Chu look like someone who's courting death? Bai Yuchen looked at Chu Yang's back. He must have his reasons for going there. Let's wait and see for now. Yes, we have to be prepared. It's highly possible that they will attack the next moment. The Ink Cloud Guards have always been decisive in their actions. They won't act rashly, but they won't stand still either. Che Shuchu calmed down in such a situation where there were already so many soldiers. At this moment, the people from the various super sects were originally as calm as still water. Everyone had the same thought. Even if Mo Yuntian's people came, they would be looking for Chu Yang or the other people from Mo Yuntian. In short, it would not be us. Our goal was always the realm of God Source under the soul-suppressing stone. As for what happened to Mo Yuntian's people and what happened to Chu Yang in the end, it had nothing to do with us. Everyone was waiting for the movement of the sword at the top of the vast mountain, hoping that the sword would disappear quickly. Or that the person who suppressed the realm of God Source would appear again and take the sword away. With such an existence here, no one had any extravagant hopes of getting the number 1 treasure in the realm of God Source. But such an existence would definitely not swallow it whole, not even leaving a little soup for others. That would be too ungentlemanly and lose the demeanor of a senior expert. But even if it was something that he didn't want, it would still be of help to everyone's sections. It was better than falling into the hands of an enemy sect. Everyone was waiting quietly. Suddenly, there were exclamations from the top of the vast mountain. That sword has disappeared. It's really gone. The evil energy is also gone. This great news quickly spread throughout the entire Purple Cloud City like a hurricane. Almost all the sects received this news at the same time. Everyone got up and was about to rush over. However, right at this moment, the sky suddenly darkened, and the 3 flying boats carried with them an unparalleled pressure. They landed directly outside Purple Cloud City, at the place where the first boat landed, blocking everyone's path. With everyone's cultivation base. Naturally, he could easily fly over. However, no one dared to. Everyone knew that the flying boat could control where it would land. Mo Yuntian's people could have landed in an even more spacious place. However, for it to land in front of everyone and block their way, there must be something going on. Acting rashly was equivalent to provoking Mo Yuntian's strength. Forcefully breaking through, regardless of whether it was a breakthrough or directly flying over, was tantamount to admitting something to the Mo Yun people who were determined to take revenge. No one wanted to bear such a consequence. It was even more unbearable. Although he was extremely unwilling, he had no choice but to stop moving forward. Mo Yuntian's 3 flying ships landed neatly. It was as if 3 huge mountains were standing in front of everyone. On the huge body of the flying boat, there was a large word written neatly, but everyone's eyelids twitched when they saw the word Wei. Wei, Inky Cloud Guard. Heavenly Emperor Mo Yun, Yuan Shetu's direct subordinate force, the most elite real force. The hatch door of the first airship slowly opened. A group of black-robed men walked out with stiff faces and straight bodies. Every time a black-robed man walked out, everyone could feel that the temperature outside Wuxia city had dropped a bit. These people, without exception, all seemed to have a murderous aura all over their bodies, filled with ice and snow. From the first flying boat, a total of 1,000 black-clothed people walked out. They lined up neatly, like a block of black tofu. Horizontally and vertically, it was also a straight line. Not a single sound was emitted from the entire process. After that, groups of soldiers wearing Mo Yuntian's military uniform began to walk out. 2 small words were embroidered on each person's collar and chest. Dream Slayer. A bout of slaughter, a dream, a few dreams together with the monarch. Great General Meng. When they saw these soldiers, everyone had already guessed who the leader this time was. Without a doubt, the leader was Mo Yuntian, one of the sky supporting 3 pillars, Great General Meng. Using soldiers is like a dream, life is like a dream. Where I dream, there are no dreams in the world. Great General Meng, his surname was Meng, but the name of the army he was in charge of was called Dream Slayer. Cutting off other people's dreams, cutting off other people's dreams of life. A few well-dressed generals quickly came down and stood silently in front of their respective armies. The other 2 spaceships were doing the same thing in an orderly and silent manner. One black, one gray, the 2 teams stood opposite each other, spread out in the shape of a goose's wing. All the officers stood at the forefront, their bodies straight. Everyone's eyes were looking at a certain cabin door of the first flying boat with fanaticism. Suddenly, a loud roar shook the clear sky. Military salute. Everyone raised their fists and placed them on their chests. Half of their faces were looking at the cabin door. A black-clothed person suddenly appeared at the cabin door. His face was thin, his spirit was hale and hearty, his body was straight. Although his long beard fluttered to his chest and he seemed to be an old man, when he took a step down, he still walked with a majestic gait, looking down on everyone. It was as if all the mountains and valleys were silent because of his arrival, and all living things were silent. What a grand display! Yun Tian's eyes were disdainful, and he snorted coldly. Others were very concerned about Great General Meng, the Dream Slayer army, and Mo Yuntian's No. 1 army, but Yun Tian was not included. When this was said, the 7,000 to 8,000 people standing there looked over coldly at the same time, and a huge pressure surged over. Yun Tian stood proudly and looked at them coldly, as if he did not care at all. Great General Meng, who had just come down, saw Yun Tian's face clearly. He waved his hand lightly and said, "Don't be impatient." That pressure was just a sentence from him. Instantly, it disappeared and shifted. "So it's young Lord Yun, this Meng greets you." Great General Meng nodded and smiled. "Greetings, Great General Meng." Yun Tian straightened his body and smiled faintly. In the eyes of the onlookers, this scene caused them to be flabbergasted. What was the background of this Yun Tian? What was his background? To be able to make Great General Meng of Mo Yun Tian be so polite to him? Stop everyone. I'm sorry for offending you. Mo Yun Tian is just trying to understand some things from everyone. If there's any offense, This Meng apologizes. Great General Meng's smile was gentle and elegant, and he looked like an amiable elder, full of the air of a ruler. We don't dare, we don't dare. Great General is too polite. Although everyone was unwilling, they almost wanted to curse. But everyone still welcomed him with a smile, and that smile even seemed especially sincere. Although this Great General Meng looked very amiable, but everyone knew that if this person were to turn hostile and give the order to annihilate a certain sect, that was definitely something that could be done. And he was also completely capable of doing such a thing. To be able to reach the position of a great general in one side of the world, which one of them was really a good person? Which one's blood would not dye the 4 seas and thousands of mountains red? Our Mo Yuntian's path is too different, and we died here. I, Meng, am here to investigate under the orders of the Heavenly Emperor. I have to understand the whole story. Great General Meng smiled faintly and actually cupped his hands. So, I hope that everyone will not be stingy with your guidance. Not be stingy with your guidance? I'll not be stingy with your guidance. Everyone cursed in unison in their hearts. It's true that we all saw it, but you all should have already heard about it. As the saying goes, every injustice has its perpetrator, and every debt has its debtor. Whoever killed Mo Yuntian, you can just go and find that person. Why are you stopping us? Why do you have to create a tense atmosphere and put us in it as well? I believe that General Meng already knows about the details of the matter. Regarding this, I'm afraid that what we can add is very limited. But I don't know which aspect General Meng wants us to add. Xue Xian frowned. Wu Zhangxiu silently took a step forward and came behind Xue Xian. If Mo Yuntian's people dared to make things difficult for Xue Xian, he would be the first to act. Great General Meng sighed and said, I only want to know one thing. I just want to confirm the cause of this matter. Hai Mingbo said indifferently from the side, the cause of this matter is very simple. Chu Yang has a wife. This woman has a pure yin body, and she is also very beautiful. Tai Tai was overjoyed when he saw her. At first, he wanted to see her, but he could not. He was chased away by Chu Yang. Tai Tai was not willing to accept this, so he sent another martial art master to kidnap his wife. At that time, Chu Yang was out on business. The people sent by Tai returned with success. Not long after Chu Yang returned, he was shocked by the change in events. He sought revenge, and finally borrowed the power of heaven and earth to kill Tai and his subordinates. Hai Pengbo's words were complete facts, but he didn't leave any face for Mo Yuntian. He didn't beat around the bush at all. He said it very straightforwardly. Obviously, he was very dissatisfied with Great General Meng's actions. Great General Meng frowned slightly, and a hint of melancholy appeared on his face. Then, he glanced at the other people's faces. He already knew that this matter wasn't fake. Chu Yang wasn't a big shot. Even if he had some strength, he wasn't worthy of these people lying to protect him. Moreover, when Hai Pengbo said it, although everyone had a strange expression, no one came forward to refute. Obviously, everyone was only shocked by Hai Pengbo's courage. But no one could deny the truth that Hai Pengbo said. Obviously, Mo Yuntian was completely wrong. On the side of the Ink Cloud Guards, a black-clothed commander stepped forward and said eerily, "What a real bastard! What kind of status do we have? Since we have taken a fancy to his wife, it's Chu Yang's honor. Then Chu Yang should offer it up with both hands and accept the favor." He actually dared to chase Mo Yuntian first, and then turned his weapons against him. In the end, he actually went against heaven's authority and killed Mo Yuntian with cruel means. His crime is unforgivable. Such a renegade is extremely evil. And you, old man, what do you mean by saying this? Chapter 1946. At this moment, other than some relatively fresh corpses, the infinite boundless mountain was already completely empty. This could be imagined. That sword had suddenly disappeared, and a passageway had appeared. Who could bear it? Once someone passed through safely, the others would naturally rush in without hesitation, fearing that they would not be able to snatch anything good. Who would think of anything else? Behind Chu Yang, an illusory and distorted spatial fissure had appeared. At this moment, he was already using all his strength. As long as he was slightly slower, he might be caught up. And then, there would be no more after. Unexpectedly, a sharp sound of something breaking through the air suddenly rang out behind him. A large, formless hand broke through the air and arrived. At this moment, Chu Yang's body had just reached the peak of the infinite boundless mountain. That large hand had already grabbed down with a force that could destroy mountains. Stay! Chu Yang only felt as if even his breathing had stopped. Using all his remaining strength, he dashed forward, entering that spatial passageway with a whoosh. Too dangerous. When he had just flown over, those people had not reacted. Only after he had sprinted for at least half the distance did they begin to move. But when he had reached the peak, they had already followed him. What kind of speed was this? What kind of cultivation was this? Chu Yang really did not have the time to think about these things now. His only thought now was to enter the relic of the divine source realm. Only by sneaking in there would he have a chance of survival, the final place of survival. And only then would he have a chance of accomplishing his original plan. His body tumbled into the long spatial tunnel, and he felt a heavy blow on his back. He felt a sweet taste in his throat, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. His body had already floated down, and he once again performed the not-so-long-ago free-falling motion. That large hand grabbed empty air, and with a boom, it slapped down on the peak of the mountain. Then, countless stone fragments flew into the air. The peak of the mountain was actually flattened by this palm. It must be known that this was no ordinary mountain peak. Back then, when Chu Yang had mistakenly entered this place with his heaven-grade cultivation, the mountain peak that he could not even pinch a stone with all his strength had actually been flattened by this palm. As Chu Yang descended, he felt as if his soul had left his body. The person who had come was too strong. With a flash, Great General Meng landed on infinite boundless mountain. He frowned and looked at the narrow and bottomless hole in front of him. His expression was solemn as he muttered, "Could this be the realm of divine source?" At this moment, the men and horses of the two armies landed. "Where is he?" Another commander of the Ink Cloud Guard asked respectfully. Black Cloud Guards and silver armored soldiers, send out 500 men each. Go in and search. Great General Meng's complexion sank. He immediately ordered, send messengers all the way to the entrance of the passageway. If any emergency happens, send a warning immediately. One person to send a message to another person. Send the message as soon as possible. Chu Yang risked his life to come here. He must have something to rely on. The two of them replied at the same time. The ones who responded were the Silver Armored Troop Commander and the Ink Cloud Guard Commander. Although the Silver Armored Soldiers were not as dazzling as the Ink Cloud Guards, they were still Great General Meng's personal guards. In fact, the level of their elites was not inferior to the Ink Cloud Guards. Especially for this expedition to the Eastern Royal Heavens, the ones who followed them were the elites of the elites, the experts of the experts. In just the blink of an eye, the two commanders had already sent out their capable men. With a command, one in silver and one in black entered first. Next, the Ink Cloud Guards and Silver Armored Soldiers entered one after another just like that. In less than 5 breaths of time, 1,000 people had already flown into this passageway. Occupy this mountain immediately. Seal it and forbid anyone from entering. Trespassers die. Great General Meng ordered indifferently. The subordinate's reply had just sounded. Swoosh, 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 countless sounds of the air being torn apart rang out. The people of the various super sects had all rushed over. The moment they saw that the entrance of the cave was already guarded by Mo Yuntian's men, and that Mo Yuntian's men were still entering, instantly, their eyes turned red. Motherfucker! You have already occupied this place the moment you arrived. Then why have we stayed here for so many months? To make your wedding dress? General Meng, what do you mean by doing this? Elder Mu walked out from the crowd with a heavy expression. Since ancient times, as long as there is a divine source realm, it has always been the wealth and resources shared by all the sects in the pugilistic world. The official forces are not allowed to interfere, especially when this place is the Eastern Royal Heavens. Even His Majesty Eastern Emperor did not send anyone to occupy it, allowing us to freely distribute and fight for it based on our opportunities. Why did Mo Yuntian guard this place the moment he arrived? General, shouldn't you give an explanation? Great General Meng said indifferently, Mu Tsanglan, I punished my subordinate just now because he violated military discipline and did not follow military orders. It is not because I am afraid of you, or rather, I am afraid of all of you. It is the same now. I am here on orders to capture the murderer who killed the imperial descendant. This is my duty, and I cannot neglect it. If His Majesty Heavenly Emperor Mo Yuntian blames me for this, can you bear the responsibility? Or rather, can your Sky Sword Alliance bear the responsibility? Mu Tsanglan said furiously, based on your words, you want to occupy this place just to capture the murderer? Do you know how much manpower and resources we have wasted to wait here for several months? Do you think we deserve it? Great General Meng said with a cold face, Elder Mu, please calm down. I have never coveted the treasures of the Eastern Royal Heavens realm of divine source. I can guarantee that once the murderer is captured, all of you will retreat immediately. Everything in the realm of divine source will not be touched at all. Please rest assured on this point, said General Meng. Xue Xian said coldly, General, you have a glib tongue. General, you can naturally enforce the law with your soldiers, but we are not under your command. Let me ask you, if we promise General Meng that after we enter, we will not interfere with the matters under your command and will not help Chu Yang, will General Meng believe us and let us go? Great General Meng was stunned and said coldly, Immortal, are you implying that I will go back on my words? Xue Xian said indifferently, General wants us to believe you, but we also want you to believe us. All of us can promise General Meng that as long as you let us go in to search for the treasures, we will not interfere with Mo Yuntian's pursuit of the murderer. That is impossible. Great General Meng rejected decisively. The faces of all the people from the various sects were filled with rage. If it was said that the third commander had angered everyone, then Great General Meng had already angered everyone. It was only because Great General Meng's abilities were unfathomable that the masterminds of the various sects were not willing to shed all pretenses and fight. Even so, both sides were still in a state of mutual hostility. Neither side was willing to back down, and a fight was about to break out. How could Great General Meng not know the seriousness of this matter? Using his own abilities to forcefully suppress the various sects was an extremely unwise move. But at this juncture, he had no choice but to do so. Because once the various sects were allowed to enter, there would definitely be more variables. Chu Yang would definitely take advantage of these people entering to do something big. Whether it was framing others or taking advantage of the situation, it might happen in the realm of divine source. It was even possible that Chu Yang would take the opportunity to disguise himself and escape. Since that was the case, it would be better to let Chu Yang stay inside alone. As long as he was captured, he would come out without any involvement. This was the best plan. So he would definitely not let the people from the various super sects enter. Great General Meng was arguing with the leaders of the various sects, but in reality, he was also stalling for time. As long as Mo Yuntian sent 1,000 people to capture Chu Yang quickly, everything would naturally come to an end and the dispute would be resolved. But previously, Chu Yang had clearly been hit by his attack and his injuries were definitely serious. He had already stalled for quite some time, but why was he still unable to capture Chu Yang? Great General Meng's plan was undoubtedly very good, but the reality was very bad. The eyes of the people from the various sects were all red with jealousy. Fuck, we have been here for a few months, eating and sleeping in the open, just for today. Before this, there was a sword suppressing us, and we could not do anything about it. When the sword was finally gone, it was taken over by Mo Yuntian's men. It seems that not only are you here for a tour, but you are also here to vent your anger? We are not stepchildren, what right do you have to be so domineering? Since you don't believe us, what right do we have to believe you? If you directly say that you are here to take a share of the loot, it's not that bad. The things in the realm of God's source are all equally fortuitous encounters, but you intend to take everything away. Isn't that clearly going against all of us? The atmosphere on the mountaintop was extremely tense, and a fight could break out at any moment. Everyone's faces were ashen. Chu Yang flew swiftly with the sound of the wind. When he was free-falling, he even used all his strength to use the 10,000-pound hammer technique. He let his body fall at the fastest speed possible. Otherwise, he would easily be caught up by the people behind him. These ink cloud guards and silver-armored soldiers who were chasing after him were all desperados. When they saw Chu Yang using the 10,000-pound hammer, all of them actually followed suit and accelerated their descent. They did not even consider what would be waiting for them below. But this matter was really not something they could consider, nor did they have the time to consider it. The realm of God Source had just been broken through. Who would have thought that Chu Yang had actually entered and exited this passageway several times already? Since Chu Yang dared to do this, and his cultivation was lower than theirs, why would they not dare to do so? Even if there was some unpredictable danger below, with Chu Yang at the front, he would be the first to be unlucky. With Chu Yang as a buffer, everyone could avoid it no matter what. Driven by such thoughts, and all of them were skilled and daring people, all of them chased after Chu Yang without any regard for their lives. Chu Yang fell all the way down. In just an instant he had fallen out of the passageway that would have taken him half a day to pass through. When he reached that piece of void, he suddenly cursed, "Fuck! What is going on?" The cold death aura that had originally completely disappeared was actually rolling and howling here. It was so dark that one could not even see their own fingers. Chapter 1947. The reason why he came in was indeed to take advantage of the situation. He was very familiar with the terrain below, at least much more familiar than the others. He could disappear without a trace with just a turn. He could play hide and seek with the enemy. This was also the most advantageous environment for him that Chu Yang could think of. Furthermore, it was a chaotic state of mind. But now, he had fallen into a terrible situation where he could not even see his own fingers. It was equivalent to both the enemy and himself being in such a situation. This was an absolutely fair environment. How could Chu Yang take advantage of the situation? His cultivation was far inferior to any of the people who were chasing after him. To Chu Yang, fighting in an absolutely fair environment was definitely the quickest way to die. Chu Yang, who had lost a lot of his plans because of the sudden change, could only fall down like a weight in the darkness. Leaving this place quickly was the most important thing. Staying here would only lead to a faster death. However, his cursing alarmed another person. Yes, to be more precise, it was actually not a person but a soul, the divine soul of the calamity. Originally, when the aura of the sword had just disappeared, the divine soul of the calamity was still very happy. Yes, I can finally go out for a walk. In the future, I can go out and come in whenever I want. This place was like my own backyard. Just as he was thinking about this wonderful place, a large group of people suddenly came in. Seeing this, the divine soul of the calamity was instantly stunned. Me? Can't you let me have some peace and quiet? Why did such a large group of trash suddenly come in? Pooh! Trash like you dare to step into my realm of the divine source. Are you looking for death? But before the divine soul of the calamity could make a move, another group came in, and then another group, and another group, and another group, and another group. After these people came in, their actions were very similar. All of them were shouting and yelling. Of course, there were all kinds of strange lines and all kinds of things. Quick, quick! See where there are good things, take them and leave quickly. Otherwise, when those super sects come in, we will have to hand over the treasures in our hands and won't even be able to drink a mouthful of soup. Yes, yes, quick, quick. Fuck, this is mine. What is this? Why is it yours? Do you think he will agree when you call him? Bastard. Take this. Bastard. Take this. Bang, 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 bang. Some people were running all over the mountains, some had broken bones from the fall, some were fighting, and some were sneaking around. The tribulation divine soul was enraged. Do you really think this place is ownerless? Can I let you do whatever you want? In his fury, the aura of his spirit instantly spread out with a loud bang. In the blink of an eye, it had already enveloped the entire realm of the divine source. Not a single person was spared, and even the tunnel that they had entered was spared. Immediately after, the divine soul of calamity led his zombies to start a massacre. It's one thing for those powerful existences to bully me, but even you bunch of ants dare to rob me. Fuck, do you really think I don't have a temper? The spirit of calamity's cultivation was so high that it was almost at the same level as Jianghu. Moreover, this was his absolute home ground. The cultivation of these people who came down first was at least 10 levels lower than the spirit of calamity. This killing was simply a one-sided massacre. No, saying that it was a massacre was an understatement. A large number of them had fallen down, and another large number had fallen down. He had just killed the last few and was searching everywhere for those who had escaped. Actually, it was very difficult to find any more. Because the aura of the spirit had spread out in all directions, it was equivalent to the entire realm of the divine source being filled with the purest chilly aura of death. This thing was the most deadly killing weapon. Even if the spirit of calamity did not attack personally, as long as they were not at the heavenly human level, they would all die. However, right at this moment, a loud curse was suddenly heard. Fuck? What's going on? The spirit of calamity instantly shuddered and almost burst into tears. This voice was too familiar. Little ancestor. Little ancestor has come down again. Oh, I was worried that this little ancestor would be angry because I rejected him the last time. How rare, he is really magnanimous. He hurriedly flew over. To a living person, this chilly aura of death was not only a visual obstruction, it was also an extremely sharp killing weapon. But to the spirit of calamity, it was the most basic thing in his body. Because he was annoyed by the sudden change just now, he did not care about anything else and unleashed his full power. In fact, it was a very wasteful action. However, now that so many people had been killed by him here, the aura of death in this place became even thicker. As long as he could retrieve all of them, the spirit of calamity would still benefit from it. In this realm of the divine source, there was no place that the spirit of calamity was not familiar with. In an instant, he had already accurately located Chu Yang's position and floated over with a whoosh. He just happened to catch the great philanthropist Chu who was about to land. Oh my little ancestor. The spirit of calamity was almost a little agitated as he said, "You came down again. But why are you still using the 10,000-pound hammer to fall down from above? I'm being chased now. I don't have to be afraid that I can't escape," Chu Yang said with difficulty. Then he realized. Why are you so attentive today? The spirit of calamity had a fawning look on his face. Didn't you ask me to follow you out last time? I've been thinking left and right these few days, and I really feel that following you is a glorious and great way out. Chu Yang was almost choked by his words. What's going on? I'm already in such a miserable state now, surrounded by the heavenly Emperor Ink Cloud's royal army. My life is also in a breath's time, and there's actually someone who can take the initiative to seek refuge with me at such a time. It's a miracle, no, it's a miracle, and the one he seeks refuge with actually boasted of being a glorious and great way out? And he can still be so fawning, so sincere, this really makes this great village master's little head unable to understand. Is this guy mocking me because he sees that I'm down and out? It really doesn't look like it. I'm conflicted, too conflicted. It's just that, at such a critical moment, Chu Yang simply did not have the leisure to consider more. His brain worked at high speed and his eyes turned. He said, "Seeing that you're so sincere, I'll reluctantly accept you. First, let one of the zombies below you run and move, let them think that I'm running." But a piece of cake. The tribulation divine spirit was instantly excited to the extreme. This little ancestor has accepted me. My future will be so bright, so brilliant and glorious, so the first task must be completed well. The pitiful tribulation divine spirit did not know at all how bright the future was. Whether it was brilliant was absolutely unknown. But right now, it was a huge trouble. The tribulation divine spirit was in high spirits. With a thought, A zombie below immediately ran at high speed. Patter, patter. This series of sounds was extremely like a person running in the darkness. In reality, it also seemed to be so. Right at this time, whooshing sounds sounded in the sky one after another. The Tribulation Divine Spirit was shocked. What's going on today? Why are they jumping down one by one, and all of them are even using the 10,000-pound hammer? Chu Yang grinned. Now, I'll have to trouble you to move me to a safe place. Yes, yes, yes. The Tribulation Divine Spirit moved this little ancestor to a corner respectfully. It's no trouble at all. How is it troublesome? You're too polite, too polite. Mo Yuntian's people descended rapidly. As soon as they came out of the tunnel, they felt endless darkness in front of them. They could not even see their own fingers. That was an extremely cold death energy. How could there be such a place? If it was the usual darkness, everyone could adapt to it. But in the face of such cold death energy, there was nothing they could do. The strength of this group of people was not bad. They were at least at the peak of the saint level. Even if they were eroded by the cold death energy, there would not be any big problem in a short period of time. But how big was the area covered by the cold death energy? Even with their cultivation, they would still be eroded if they stayed in an environment full of cold death energy for a long time. As long as they were not at the heavenly human level, they would definitely not be able to resist the erosion for a long time. But to stop and even retreat? But to retreat was tantamount to disobeying a military order. There was only death for them. Just as he was stuck between a rock and a hard place, he suddenly heard the sound of running footsteps coming from below. There's only one person. The ink cloud guards and the silver-armored soldiers came to this conclusion at the same time. Then who was this person? In such a situation, there was only one person, and he looked very flustered. That could only be Chu Yang. Chu Yang was escaping. From the sound of it, he could still run and wander around, looking for a way out. His cultivation is not as high as ours, but he could still run after falling. Then what are we afraid of? As long as we can capture Chu Yang, it will be a great achievement. It's not easy to make military achievements in times of peace. But as long as we can capture Chu Yang this time, we will help Lord Heavenly Emperor take revenge. It was undoubtedly reaching the sky in a single step. Everyone did not slow down and descended with a rumble. They all fought to be the first, fearing that Chu Yang would fall into the hands of others. As they descended, they kept thanking Great General Meng, thanking the commander. He actually gave such a great opportunity to me. If I didn't grab it, I could totally die. One after another, they descended like meteors and entered the cold death energy at full speed. They entered the darkness where they could not see their own fingers. All of them were in high spirits, all of them gnashing their teeth, all of them smug. It seemed that this tunnel was not very deep, everyone thought in their hearts. Then, after a short time, everyone started to panic. Oh my goodness! We used all our cultivation and used the 10,000-pound hammer to descend. This speed of descent was at least 10,000 times faster than usual. In other words, if a certain abyss was 10,000 feet deep, it would take almost 30 minutes to reach the bottom normally. But if we used the 10,000-pound hammer, it would be in the blink of an eye. It would be the same time as jumping down 10 feet. How could it be the same? But now, even if it was 20,000 feet, it seemed that they should have landed. Why hadn't they touched the ground yet? If they fell to the ground at such a speed... Sly. I forgot to click the publish button when I uploaded the third update. I was only focused on writing the fourth update. Now that I finished writing, I realized, sly, very sly. Chapter 1949. Thinking of this, all of them started to restrain their cultivation and started to lighten their bodies, float, and turn upwards. However, with the inertia of more than 200,000 feet, close to 300,000 feet, and the falling force of the 10,000-pound hammer, how could this huge falling force be dispelled in an instant? In the blink of an eye. Bang! Suddenly, there was a loud noise, and the ground in the realm of divine source shook. The first ink cloud guard fell like a meteorite, smashing onto the flat mountain peak that almost broke Chu Yang's body. With a cracking sound, the sturdy mountain peak was smashed into pieces of rock. Another one. Boom. Another one. Another pair. Boom, boom, boom. Chu Yang only felt an earthquake, and it was the kind of earthquake that was super large. His ears were almost deafened. After dozens of consecutive quakes, the people on Mo Yuntian's side fell rapidly like dumplings, and they almost smashed together. Chu Yang estimated that the man at the bottom had probably become a pile of minced meat now. No one could withstand such collisions, and dozens of them in a row. Then, the people at the top finally had time to adjust their falling speed, but the result was that they still fell heavily. No matter how they adjusted, the inertia still existed. The only difference was the magnitude of the inertia after adjustment. Bang, 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 bang. This scene is really too tragic. Chu Yang sighed in his heart, only feeling his little heart thumping. He asked the Divine Spirit, "How many died?" The Divine Spirit grinned. "These people are not simple, only 2 died. The others are only seriously injured, and are still breathing. They will probably all die soon." When the Ink Cloud guards and silver-armored soldiers were in their best condition, they could naturally resist the cold death energy, but now that they were seriously injured, how could they resist the death energy? It was only a matter of time before they died. So many of them are not completely dead? Can you kill them all as soon as possible? Chu Yang asked carefully. "No problem at all. It's a piece of cake." The Divine Spirit took charge. This was a chance to show off in front of the little ancestor, so the Divine Spirit naturally had to do his best. What's more, these were all experts. If they were all dead, it would be a super tonic for the Divine Soul. Without a sound, the soul of the calamity floated out confidently. "Master Ha, just look at the people in Old May who dare to hunt you down. The sooner the better. Otherwise, there might be changes." Chu Yang reminded. The Calamity Divine Soul Mei Shangren patted his chest and went out with a whoosh. The big zombie moved out together, along with a saint-level Calamity Divine Soul. In the darkness, they pounced on the falling Ink Cloud guards and silver armor soldiers with incomparable precision. Even though the Black Cloud guards and the silver-armored soldiers were warriors who had gone through thousands of battles, when had they ever fought in such a strange place before? They couldn't be blamed for this. Chu Yang, whose cultivation was obviously weaker than theirs, had landed on the ground, but he seemed to be fine. But as soon as they landed, something happened. There was no reason for this at all. There was really no way to reason with such a strange thing. Actually, the problem was, what they didn't know was that Chu Yang had come in before. And even though it was unexpected this time, Chu Yang had the Divine Spirit to catch it, but they didn't have such treatment. This directly led to this tragedy. Especially the 2 people at the bottom. With a loud boom, his entire body was smashed into the hard rock. His bones and tendons were broken on the spot, and his internal organs were severely injured. Before he could even catch his breath, his companion had already smashed into him like a meteor. They died an unnatural death before they could even cry out. The most tragic thing was that if they were just dead, the 2 of them wouldn't be worried. Because experts who had reached this level of cultivation could basically keep their souls from being destroyed. As long as they got someone to open up the passage to the netherworld and befriend Shin Feng and Lu Yun, they could be reincarnated, but in this space, there was a Calamity Divine Soul that specialized in devouring souls. This time, it was a complete tragedy. It was a bleak ending that was beyond redemption. Hundreds of people fell from above. Only the last 100 or 200 people fell relatively slowly because they had to maintain contact with the top. But because of this, they also avoided death. Inside, the Calamity Divine Soul had already begun to show its ferocious power. It was silently and wantonly slaughtering people. The cultivation of these people was originally much lower than him. At this moment, there was an accident. They were seriously injured, and even had to use a considerable amount of strength to resist the erosion of the cold death aura. How could they resist? In just a short time, more than 100 people had already died in the hands of the Calamity Divine Soul. Their bodies and souls were all destroyed, and they were beyond redemption. At this time, someone shouted, Everyone, pay attention. There's a monster below. Everyone, back to back, quickly gather together and fight against the enemy together. Only then will we have a chance of survival. Experts were indeed experts. Even in such a bad situation, they quickly came up with the most suitable plan. But a zombie and a calamity divine soul had already pounced on them fiercely. Zombies didn't have souls. They were special existences that weren't afraid of pain or death. They were even more standard death soldiers than death soldiers. In an extremely dark environment, zombies were like fish in water. They didn't have any scruples and attacked without restraint. The destructive power they formed was extraordinarily high. Although the ink cloud guards and the silver-armored soldiers each had different degrees of injuries and were in an unprecedentedly bad situation, they had already calmed down. They spontaneously formed a formation in the darkness and carried out the most tenacious resistance in a way that was most suitable for the current environment. At least, it wasn't as one-sided as before. The duration of this battle was very short, but it was extremely intense. However, only the sounds of the inevitable collisions could be heard. Other than that, there were no other signs of life. From beginning to end, there was actually not a single person shouting or groaning. Zombies couldn't speak, so they naturally didn't make any sound. But the other party could also completely ignore their injuries and fight blindly. Chu Yang asked himself if he had seen this kind of perseverance in his life, especially in such an unexpected situation where they had fallen into such a terrible situation. All the participating members were actually able to remain so calm and carry out a desperate counterattack. The elite quality of these two armies was evident. However, with the strong intervention of the Calamity Divine Soul, the Ink Cloud Guards and the silver-armored soldiers once again fell into an absolute disadvantage. They fell down in droves. Unexpectedly, someone finally shouted again. And it was a loud shout. But the content of the shout wasn't a cry for pain, nor was it a cry for help to the outside world. It was a reminder: the opponents here are all zombies. They don't have a situation where their combat power is reduced because of injuries. Ordinary vital attacks have no effect on them. There are also extremely powerful Calamity Divine Souls here. They have already exceeded the limits of what we can fight against. The voice was loud. Although the content of the words was full of negativity, there was no fear. Instead, it was full of a kind of awe-inspiring smell of iron and blood. What they wanted to pass on was only this news that was unfavorable to them. Chu Yang was startled. He heard another person shouting from afar, "The opponents here are all zombies. They don't have a situation where their combat power is reduced because of injuries. Ordinary vital attacks have no effect on them. There are also extremely powerful Calamity Divine Souls here. They have already exceeded the limits of what we can fight against." As soon as this person's voice fell, a long shout came from the direction of the distant tunnel. It was obviously a shout that burned his life essence. The content was the same. The opponents here are all zombies. They don't have a situation where their combat power is reduced because of injuries. Ordinary vital attacks have no effect on them. There are also extremely powerful Calamity Divine Souls here. They have already exceeded the limits of what we can fight against. Even further away, another person shouted, but that voice was almost inaudible. Chu Yang suddenly realized. This should be the communication method arranged by Mo Yuntian. In such a strange situation, Mo Yuntian's people could only use this most primitive method. But it was undeniable that this method was the most effective communication method at the moment. Chu Yang shouted, "Speed up the attack frequency. We must kill all these enemies here before the next wave of reinforcements arrives." The other party's calmness and fierceness, as well as that extremely rare perseverance, made Chu Yang feel a sense of awe and veneration. But this could not affect his determination to kill the other party. On the contrary, the more the enemy was like this, the more he could not let go of the target. He could only try his best to kill all of them. Both sides were hostile to each other. If he didn't kill them, they would kill him. No problem. The soul of the calamity suddenly let out a sharp whistle, and the cold aura of death in the entire divine source realm suddenly became even denser. Then, countless skulls suddenly appeared out of thin air, and with ghostly cries, they suddenly pounced down from midair. The battle became even more intense. The casualties were even more severe. Of course, only the ink cloud guards and silver-armored soldiers suffered even greater casualties. Even if the soul of the calamity was disregarded, the level of the zombie itself was above all the soldiers that had entered this batch. Moreover, it wasn't afraid of injuries or weapons. If it wasn't for the fact that these soldiers were usually well-trained and had persevering personalities, they would have completely collapsed a long time ago. As for those skulls later, they were formed by the Calamity Divine Soul's own vital energy. It was not that they could not be destroyed, but the essence of those things was extremely pure cold death aura. If you really scattered them, it would instead allow the cold death aura to find an opportunity to enter your body's acupuncture points, and you would only die faster. This was the Calamity Divine Soul's most powerful group attack. Above, the various super sects were suppressed by Great General Meng. Everyone was about to lose their patience. Their eyes were spitting fire. As long as anyone made the first move, it would completely trigger everyone's bottom line. But from beginning to end, no one dared to cross the line. Chapter 1950. Because Great General Meng was still standing there. His eyes were emotionless as he stared coldly at everyone. He knew that it was inappropriate for him to do this. However, he couldn't cause any more trouble now. He could only hope that his soldiers would be able to capture Chu Yang as soon as possible and leave this place as soon as possible. However, right at this critical moment, a wave of white clouds suddenly surged in the distant sky, and then they surged up and roiled without end. Above the clouds, a huge golden flag that was 100 feet wide and 1,000 feet wide suddenly unfurled. There were 8 words written on it. The might of the Eastern Royal Heavens, unparalleled in the universe. An abnormally strong heaven and earth might suddenly envelop Zhe Yuanguang, covering him from all directions. That huge golden flag seemed to have really swept through the heavens and earth. From the start to the end, it was still unfurled. In an instant, everyone's attention was attracted by it. Everyone felt their hearts sink. Because the appearance of this flag meant that the Eastern Royal Heavens had made a move. Even the most calm Great General Meng narrowed his eyes. He knew that the biggest obstacle to them coming to the Eastern Royal Heavens had arrived. The strength of the various sects couldn't be underestimated. In fact, they were strong enough to deal a devastating blow to his army. However, as long as it wasn't a decisive moment, the various sects wouldn't dare to make a move. Once they made a move, it would mean that they would become mortal enemies with the entire Eastern Royal Heavens. This wasn't something that the upper echelons of the various sects were willing to see. The various sects weren't willing to pay a heavy price because of this. This was the reason why Great General Meng was so confident in suppressing the various sects. However, now that they were facing the Eastern Royal Heavens, this confidence of his no longer existed. This place was the territory of the Eastern Royal Immortal Realms. It was already very rude of him to lead his troops across the border. If the other party didn't care and wanted to charge him with the crime of harboring evil intentions, he truly wouldn't be able to defend himself. Not only was it because the reason for his defense was completely untenable, it was also because of a matter of dignity. You led your troops to my territory to capture the citizens of my territory and didn't even give any prior notice. You came here in such a brazen manner to capture them. Putting himself in their shoes, Great General Meng asked himself. If he was in their shoes, he wouldn't let them off so easily either. The white clouds parted abruptly and a heavily fortified military camp appeared in the air. Flags fluttered in the wind, boundless and boundless. There were only silhouettes, but no one came out. A door that seemed to be supported by white jade blocked all sight. Behind Great General Meng, a few Mo Yuntian officers felt the enmity of the enemy army. At the same time, they held onto their sword hilts. Their fighting spirit was about to burst out. General Meng sighed inwardly. Judging from the other party's attitude, it was clear that they did not come with good intentions. Today's matter would probably not end well. The next moment, the empty door slowly opened, revealing an unusually spacious path. However, this path was empty for the time being, and not a single soul could be seen. I wonder which general of the Eastern Royal Heavens has come? I am Mo Yuntian Meng Wuya. Please come out and answer. Great General Meng raised his voice. The sky was still silent. Unexpectedly, no one answered. This kind of silence usually only meant one thing. We don't care about you. The faces of the generals behind Great General Meng were filled with extreme humiliation and anger. Our great general has personally asked you, and you didn't even say a word? We are both generals of the greater heaven and earth, yet you humiliate your opponent like this? Wasn't this too much? The moment they thought of this, they were so angry that their chests heaved up and down. Their eyes were burning with anger. They believed that as long as Great General Meng gave the order, these generals would immediately go over and fight with their lives. However, they did not know that at this moment, there was actually an argument going on in Great General Lan's tent. There must be a reason for the deployment of troops. Who will go and ask? Great General Lan said slowly. I will go. I will go. In an instant, the subordinates all fought to be the first to go. Let me go. The one who spoke was actually Yen Russian, who did not have a military position. Everyone was depressed. Everyone was fighting, but they all had military positions. At the very least, it could be said that it was their duty. But who was you? You were just a general of the Oath Division. Why are you joining in the fun? However, Great General Lan looked deeply at Yen Russian and said, General Yan's suggestion is very good. I will invite General Yen to make a trip. Everyone was shocked. What suggestion was very good? What suggestion did he make? No matter who it was, it shouldn't be Yen Russian's turn, right? Why did Great General Lan let him go? What the hell was this? Yen Russian lowered his eyebrows and bowed. Thank you for your trust, Great General Lan. He turned and left. Under the watchful eyes of the crowd outside, a green-clothed figure slowly walked out of the door with his hands behind his back. This person looked very young, but his green robe fluttered in the wind. At this moment, he stood high in the air, exuding a lofty and unworldly aura. His expression was cold and arrogant, and there was a vaguely unapproachable air about him. Great General Meng frowned and asked, May I know who you are? Yen Russian said coldly, The might of Donghuang is unparalleled in this world. The dignity of Donghuang is inviolable. Who are the troops below? Where are they from? Why are they suddenly invading Donghuang heaven? What are their intentions? Great General Meng was furious. The other party's attitude was clearly provocative. The arrogance of his words was secondary. The most abominable thing was that he was clearly finding fault with every word he said. Moreover, they were all big problems. The word offend was enough to completely oppose the positions of both sides. But the reality was that they were in someone else's territory, and the situation was stronger than the person. Although Great General Meng was extremely furious, he still knew etiquette. It was fine if he suffered some grievances, but the most important thing was that he couldn't let others talk about it. I am Mo Yuntian Meng Zhan, Meng Wuya. I am under the orders of Heavenly Emperor Mo Yuntian to capture the criminal. This trip was too rushed, and I didn't have time to report to the upper echelons of Donghuang Heaven. This general, please report to the upper echelons that Meng Wuya is willing to apologize for this. Just based on Meng Wuya's status, to be able to say this was already considered very humble. Under normal circumstances, the people of the imperial court would always be polite and wouldn't say anything outright. No matter what, Yen Russian should turn around and report to the upper echelons before making a decision. But it was a pity that Yen Russian's actions today were definitely not normal. Yen Russian clasped his hands behind his back and said arrogantly, Capture the criminal of Mo Yuntian? What a strong reason. I am really interested to know why the criminal of Mo Yuntian would come to our Eastern Royal Heavens? What logic is this? Could it be that the criminal escaped 108,000 miles from Mo Yuntian and came to the Eastern Royal Heavens? Could it be that this criminal's cultivation is at the level of a saint? Otherwise, why would he run so far away? Could it be that your Mo Yuntian has fallen to the point where you can't even capture a criminal? In the Mo Yuntian army, an officer couldn't hold it in anymore. He pointed and shouted, "Hey, what do you mean by this? Do you know who you are talking to? Are the people of the Eastern Royal Heavens so impudent? Don't you know how to respect your seniors?" Impudent. Yen Russian's expression turned cold as he looked at this officer. He said coldly, "You guys traveled so far to our Eastern Royal Heavens and sent an army to suppress us. Did you guys get our permission? Do you have a book? Do you have a discussion? Do you have a report? Do you have a token?" The people of Mo Yuntian were all speechless. They really didn't have these things. They had originally planned to return as soon as they could settle this matter. If they couldn't, they would contact the officials of the Eastern Royal Heavens to settle the procedures. They had thought that Chu Yang's strength was at most at the Saint Realm and that they would leave after capturing the criminal. Earlier, they were still rejoicing that they met Chu Yang the moment they arrived. However, they didn't expect the situation to change. In such a short period of time, the officials of the Eastern Royal Heavens had arrived. Although they didn't really want to not do it, now that they were asked about this matter, they felt that they were in the wrong and had nothing to say. However, no one expected that the army of the Eastern Royal Heavens would arrive so quickly. It was as if they had been waiting here for a long time. Actually, the truth was that they had been waiting here for a long time. If it wasn't for the fact that Chu Yang had the divine soul of the calamity to help him, he might have been captured long ago. Mo Yuntian's group would have already returned. "You guys don't have anything, right?" Yen Russian pinned them down. "Then, are you guys here to invade our borders? Or invade our borders? Seeing that your army is so majestic, can I take it that your Mo Yuntian wants to declare war on our Eastern Royal Heavens?" The more Meng Wuya listened, the more he felt that something was amiss. What did this fellow mean? Every word of his was filled with sarcasm. It was as if he was intentionally trying to cause a war between the two sides. Moreover, the more he spoke, the more ridiculous it was. What majestic army! What nonsense! We only have 10,000 plus people here. How can this be called majestic army? With such a small number of people, how dare you invade our borders? How dare you invade our Eastern Royal Heavens? May I know the name of this general? Meng Wuya waved his hand, stopping his subordinates who were about to explode as he asked solemnly. Yen Russian coldly spoke, "I'm just a minor character, what great name do I have? My purpose here is to ask you all a question. If you all insist on invading our borders and starting a war, our Eastern Royal Immortal realms will definitely not be afraid of your Black Cloud Immortal realm." General Yen was Chu Yang's sworn brother. Meng Wuya and the others were here to capture Chu Yang. Moreover, the reason was the other party's fault. With regards to all of this, Yen Russian was already so angry that his stomach was about to explode. Now that he came out, how could he be nice to them? In his heart, he wanted nothing more than to start a war and wipe out all of them here. This was also the reason why General Lan didn't send anyone else but Yen Russian. Because Yen Russian was undoubtedly the person who wanted the two sides to start a war the most. Yen Russian's thoughts were mostly the same as General Lan's. He wanted to muddy the waters. Mo Yuntian's people came to the Eastern Royal Heavens without permission. How could he let them off so easily? Chapter 1951. I have never said that the purpose of this trip is to declare war with Eastern Royal Heaven. Meng Wuya explained patiently. Baidu search P.com. The other party clearly wanted to declare war. Why would they declare war? Why would they declare war? This was still unknown. However, Great General Meng was clear on one thing. Once the war started, everyone he brought along, including himself, would die here. Moreover, they would die without dignity and without any value. If they died in a war, then so be it. This was the fate of soldiers. However, if they were to die for a scoundrel who snatched someone's wife, Great General Meng believed that not only would he and the silver-armored soldiers die with grievances, but those Ink Cloud guards would also die with grievances. Being loyal to the imperial family was one thing, but dying in humiliation was another. Therefore, the more the other party wanted to declare war, the more he would not fight. This was not cowardice, but strategy. It was the wisdom of a general. Moreover, the consequences of this war would be unimaginable. In Great General Meng's heart, even if Yuan Sheta was still alive, it was not worth starting a war for him, let alone now that he was dead. Not to mention that he was killed by the husband for snatching someone's wife. If the entire Mo Yuntian was dragged into the flames of war for this kind of scum, then the entire Mo Yuntian would really cry. Since you are not declaring war, then what are you doing here? Sightseeing? Yen Russian's voice was stern. Is this place very fun? Is that why you are here for sightseeing? No matter how good Meng Wuya's temper was, he could not help but be angered by these words. This sentence directly caused all the problems to start from the beginning. What are you doing here? I am here to catch the murderer. Why are you here to catch the fugitive of Ink Cloud Sky? Because the fugitive is in Eastern Royal Heaven. Could it be that you guys want to invade the Eastern Royal Immortal Realms? Start a war with Eastern Royal Heaven? We don't want to start a war with Eastern Royal Heaven. You don't want to start a war? Fine, then what are you here for? Fine. This was a perfect cycle that could continue forever. Of course, the prerequisite was that Great General Meng's temper could not flare up for a long time. Is this general deliberately making things difficult for this old man? Meng Wuya's face finally sank and his voice turned sharp. Aren't you trying to make things difficult for the Eastern Royal Celestial Army? Yen Russian's voice was filled with arrogance as he continued, let me ask you this. This was the location of the ruins of the Eastern Royal Heaven's Divine Source realm. The location of the ruins of the realm of Divine Source had always belonged to the pugilistic world. Even His Majesty Donghuang has yet to declare his position. Your Mo Yuntian sealed this place the moment you came. What is the meaning of this? Are we the ones making things difficult for you, or are you the ones making things difficult for all of us? These words were too sharp, directly placing Mo Yuntian on the opposite side of all the people and powers. On the side, the various super sects heard this. His entire body felt as if he had eaten ice cream on a hot day. It felt so good. Who asked you, Yinan, to be so tyrannical? Indeed, evil people need to be dealt with by evil people. Now that you've met someone stronger than you, you've gone soft, haven't you? Damn it. To think that you scolded us so much previously. Now, it's finally your turn to have a taste of humiliation. We all have our own taboos, and we don't dare to fall out with you guys. Now that someone even more ruthless has come, let's see what you guys have to say. The culprit that we're searching for has found an opportunity to enter the realm of Divine Source. To avoid being hunted down, we naturally have to capture the culprit. Great General Meng was slightly angry. We have no intention of getting our hands on the things in the realm of Divine Source. I guarantee that. We definitely won't do anything. Haha. Yen Russian laughed loudly. Your words can only fool a 3-year-old. Let's not talk about whether I believe your words or not. You can ask all the representatives of the super sects here. Will any of them believe your words? Everyone shook their heads in unison. Obviously. At this moment, even if they believed it, they couldn't say that they believed it. They would rather offend Mo Yuntian. After all, this wasn't Mo Yuntian's home ground. At most, they would never go to Mo Yuntian. However, if they offended the Eastern Royal Skies military, they would definitely not be able to walk out of this place alive. Moreover, the Eastern Royal Skies military is on our side now. Everything they say and do is to fight for our interests. How can we turn against each other? There was another most important point. This general had said that the Divine Source Realm relic was a dispute in the pugilistic world, and the government and military would definitely not get involved. This point was far too tempting. There was actually such a sensible government representative here, and it was obvious who he was leaning towards. Meng Wuya gritted his teeth and said, General, what is your intention? Please state it clearly. He could tell that no matter if this was the original intention of the person in front of him or if someone else was behind it, it would be hard to settle this peacefully today. However, this matter was too important. No matter what, he still had to make one last effort. As long as there was a chance that they wouldn't fall out with each other, he had to do his best. Unexpectedly, Yen Russian said loudly, I don't have the time to care whether you are here to capture the culprit or to invade the Eastern Royal Sky's interests. Now, you are not allowed to interfere in the matters of the Eastern Royal Sky. You are also not allowed to disturb the order. You are especially not allowed to harm the lives of the people. Now, everyone, back off immediately. Remove the seal on this place and let out the realm of divine source. As for what happens in the future, it will depend on your performance. If you still dare to resist stubbornly, then you can provoke us. Don't blame me for not reminding you first. This sentence caused everyone in the ink cloud sky, no matter if it was the ink cloud guards or the silver-armored soldiers, they were all so angry that their stomachs almost exploded. Humans need face and trees need bark. Not only Meng Wuxia, it was also the first time in their lives that they were being scolded and insulted like this. If it wasn't for the military order, they would have already gone up to fight with their lives. Great General Meng looked at the neat formation of the Eastern Royal Sky's military and stared at it for a long time. Then he waved his hand and said, "All troops, disperse." This meant that they were giving in. They were giving way to the various super sects to enter. This was giving in through and through. There was no other way. The situation was stronger than the person. If they insisted on not letting them in, it would be equivalent to going against them. The 10,000 people here would all be buried here. The Ink Cloud Sky's generals were so angry that their necks were sore. In the end, they got such a reply. All of them were so angry that their heads were filled with blood. Great General! Great General! You can't! Great General, shut up! Great General Meng's face was dark. Military orders must be obeyed. Didn't you hear it? Those who disobey will be killed without mercy. At this moment, he had to give a strict order. If any accident happened, the consequences would be unimaginable. Yes. The generals were angry but didn't dare to say anything. With a face full of grief and anger, they gave their orders. In just a short while, the Ink Cloud Sky's army dispersed and gave way to the entrance of the realm of God Source. This made Yen Russian, who was in the sky, feel surprised. It seemed that this great General Meng was really an extremely scary character. He could even tolerate this? As the Ink Cloud Sky's people moved away, the people from the various super sects were about to enter. They had been waiting impatiently for a long time. After all, this was the place where the two armies were confronting each other. If it wasn't for the fact that the treasures in the realm of God Source were irresistible, they would have left this place long ago. Now that there was a chance to enter, it was better to enter as soon as possible and complete the task as soon as possible. You guys can settle the dispute between the two heavens and earth. It has nothing to do with us. Great General Meng frowned and observed the movements around him. Beside him, a general came up and said hurriedly, "General, shut up." Great General Meng said in a low voice, "Our mission this time is to capture Chu Yang alive and kill the traitors of Ink Cloud Sky. It is definitely not to start a war with Eastern Royal Heaven. As long as we complete those tasks, no matter how much humiliation we have to suffer, we will have completed our mission. If we really start a war with Eastern Royal Heaven, then even if we have completed our mission, we will be sinners of the entire Ink Cloud Sky. Once we start a war, the entire Ink Cloud Sky will be filled with corpses. The entire Eastern Royal Heaven will also be filled with corpses. And all of this was caused by our unintentional invasion. By then, even if we have been dead for thousands of years, our names will be left in the history books. We will be sinners forever." Great General Meng gritted his teeth and said, "Endure. You must endure, endure." Sir, the general shuddered. Yes, it was fine to start a war based on a moment of passion. If he was alone, it was fine if he died. But the problem was that all of them represented the entire Ink Cloud Sky now. Above, Yen Russian was still planning to nitpick and continue to provoke them. Unexpectedly, a heart-wrenching voice came from below. "The opponents here are all zombies. They don't have the situation where their combat power is reduced because of injuries. Normal vital attacks are useless against them. There are also extremely powerful divine souls of calamities here. They have already exceeded the limits of what we can fight against. The news from below finally came up. Great General Meng's expression changed when he heard that. He suddenly turned to look at Elder Mu, Shui Xian and the rest. There are actually divine souls of calamities here? He didn't understand the specific situation here at all and came here in such a hurry. Who would have thought that there was actually such a huge trap below? Shui Xian's expression was cold as she said indifferently, "General, you must be joking. Is it very strange for divine souls of calamities to be produced below the sealed divine source realm? Or is it that General doesn't know what the divine source realm is at all?" Meng Wuya didn't have the time to care about Shui Xian's attitude at this moment. He stood up anxiously and turned into a black smoke, speedily entering the passageway. Behind him, the people from various sects and all the ink cloud guards and silver-armored soldiers also entered together. Swish, swish, swish. Swish, swish, swish. Chapter 1952. Almost everyone who dared to rush in at this moment was an expert among experts. Everyone's movements were extremely agile. In a very short period of time, the originally crowded mountain peak was empty. Yen Russian looked from above and muttered, "Should I go in and take a look too? I can't be at ease if I don't go in." He descended like a breeze and entered the tunnel with a whoosh. In the commander's tent, General Lan was stroking his beard and smiling. This Meng Wuya is really good at enduring. However, Yuan Tianjie has really made things difficult for him by sending him to capture Chu Yang. This fellow has a very straightforward temper, but he actually did something that goes against his conscience. Everyone burst into laughter. No matter what, seeing an important person from another world being humiliated in front of them was always a good feeling. Just as General Lan was feeling smug, he was surprised to see Yen Russian enter as well. He couldn't help but slap his thigh. What is he doing in there? Is he looking for death? Didn't he hear that there are divine souls in there? He thought for a while and said, "Immediately send 5,000 people in to take a look." With a whoosh, 5,000 people landed neatly in the dark camp. Then with a whoosh, they entered the divine source realm in an instant. When General Meng went down, he was a little dazed. Inside the divine source realm, it was clear and bright. The chilly Yin energy that was still raging just now had retreated like a whirlwind, leaving behind only a mess. Other than the dozens of people who stayed at the entrance of the tunnel, there were about 200 to 300 people who were seriously injured. All the survivors were covered in blood and were on the verge of dying from their injuries. As for the other 700 people, they were not injured, because they were already dead. Corpses were strewn all over the place. Blood, flesh, and broken limbs were everywhere. Other than the corpses and broken limbs, there were also some treasures. Perhaps some was not the right word to describe it. If everyone had some treasures near them, the total number was still considerable. Hence, it should be said that there were quite a number of treasures. Furthermore, anyone with a discerning eye would be able to tell that these treasures were originally from the realm of divine source. Although they were of a lower level and might not be of much value, the reality was that it was impossible to see these treasures from hundreds of thousands or millions of years ago in the outside world. Even some of the weapons had traces left on them from long ago. The extremely simple and unadorned style further revealed the origin of these items. This was definitely not something that could be easily imitated or faked by the people who had just entered. Since the origin of these items could be ascertained, then why would they appear beside these people? The answer seemed to be inexplicable. What a good Chiu did not offend, not taking a single shot. Everyone collectively glared at Great General Meng who had just entered. Didn't you just say outside that you wouldn't covet the treasures and inheritance inside? How are you going to explain that now? Is this what you Mo Yuntian mean by not committing any crime? So that's how you understand this word. Fortunately, we came in early. Otherwise, wouldn't this place have been emptied out by your people? To think that you keep saying that you're so righteous. That's right. You can even explain Qiu Wuqi in such a way. What's the point of being a little righteous? These treasures obviously came from there, and they were of a lower level. Of course, they were definitely left behind by Chu Yang. Otherwise, how could one explain why such a large place like the realm of the divine source was already empty? And although there were treasures beside all the corpses, they were all cheap goods. Only one or two of them were of a slightly higher level. Such a simple trap shouldn't have fallen for those old foxes of the super sex so easily. But once a person had a blind spot, they would continue to think according to their own fixed train of thought. This was only the periphery. Of course, there weren't many valuable things here. But even these cheap goods could be used as a reference to understand the standards of the past. They could even deduce many things, techniques, methods, and so on. So, even if they were cheap goods, they were still very valuable. Everyone had already determined that the Mo Yuntian soldiers were filling their pockets. In addition to the humiliation they had suffered outside, they wouldn't think about anything else. Yet, Great General Meng obviously didn't pay attention to these material evidence. His eyes were only looking at the dead silver-armored soldiers on the ground with some pain. These soldiers were all his trusted subordinates whom he had carefully nurtured for many years. He could even accurately name every single one of them. Not long ago, they were still standing solemnly beside him. But now, at this moment, there were actually so many people who had lost their lives here and turned into cold corpses. Even their divine souls had been destroyed and they would never be reincarnated. At this moment, he suddenly remembered the situation where Chu Yang didn't hesitate to appear in front of others and ran over here as if he didn't care about his life. At that time, he guessed that there might be something fishy below. At least, it should be beneficial to Chu Yang. But he didn't expect that so many of his capable subordinates would be buried here because of this. Chu Yang, divine souls of calamities. Great General Meng muttered, and his expressions suddenly became exceptionally fierce. So that's it. Below, there was actually a huge trap. Although he didn't know why Chu Yang was so clear about it, this was a trap specially prepared for the Mo Yuntian soldiers. He could already confirm without a doubt. Chu Yang, where are you? Come out. Great General Meng's voice was solemn. It reverberated in the realm of the God Source. But there was no reply. As long as Chu Yang's brain wasn't filled with water, he wouldn't take the initiative to show himself no matter what. Great General Meng waited for a while. Then he waved his hand and shouted, "Search! Search carefully and be careful of the divine souls of calamities. If there's any movement, don't act rashly. Report back immediately." 10,000 people rushed out after receiving the order. The people from the various super sects also rushed out to search for treasures. There was no point in continuing to talk nonsense at this time. What was in their hands was the real deal. With a swoosh, Yen Russian also landed. Behind him was the entire Donghuang Heaven's army. They silently lined up in a square formation, ready to attack at any time, facing Meng Wuya. Meng Wuya's face was ashen. He stood with his hands behind his back and completely ignored this group of people. The purpose of these people was obviously to spy on him. Meng Wuya was depressed. Am I so tasteless? Do I need you to spy on me? Yen Russian still stood high up in the sky, focusing all his attention on any clues in any direction. Meng Wuya didn't know what these people were doing, but Yen Russian's heart was very clear. There was actually only one key point. Chu Yang. They wanted to capture him, but Yen Russian wanted to protect him. Even Great General Lan, who was in the sky, didn't know that Yen Russian's purpose was to protect Chu Yang. It was silent. Almost at the same time, there were countless disputes in all directions. These disputes came very suddenly, but they were very orderly and noisy. In some places, some treasures or ancient books would be found from time to time. And the locations of these treasures were all very obvious. It was almost visible at a glance. Under such circumstances, the result was that you saw it, and I saw it too. So who should it belong to? Therefore, there was a conflict. Put it down. I saw it first. Get lost. Aren't you just here to catch a criminal? What are you going to do with it? Put it down. Bang, 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 bang. Very obviously, every time there was a discovery, the people from the various super sects would have some disputes with Mo Yuntian's people. Back and forth, when some disputes accumulated, it wasn't just some disputes anymore. Although the quantitative change hadn't caused a qualitative change for the time being, This trend was already the general trend. What was lacking was nothing more than an opportunity to start. Great General Meng listened to the cursing, quarreling, and fighting sounds all around, and he had his own plans. At this moment and place, he was the one who was most unwilling to see disputes. Great General Meng frowned and shouted loudly, "All Mo Yuntian's people listen to my order. The only purpose of this trip is to search for that criminal. As for the treasures and ancient books, none are allowed to touch them. Those who disobey will be beheaded." This resolute and decisive sentence spread far and wide, and it really had some moderating effect. But in some unseen places, there were still disputes constantly appearing. Although most of the people in Mo Yuntian's trip would obey Great General Meng's orders, such as the silver-armored soldiers, there were also people who didn't fully follow orders. For example, Mo Yuntian's personal guards, Mo Yuntian guards. Under normal circumstances, orders naturally had to be obeyed. But when the temptation exceeded someone's resistance limit, the order didn't have much meaning. For example, if a saber user saw a treasure sword, although he also had a desire to possess it, under this order, he would also give up. But if a sword user was stuck at a bottleneck for a long time, and very unexpectedly and pleasantly surprised to see a sword truth, it would be very difficult for him not to be tempted. If the location just happened to be a more remote place, and there weren't many people around, then it would be too difficult for him to not make a move and disobey the order. Once such a situation occurred, even the silver-armored soldiers might not necessarily not be tempted, let alone those Mo Yuntian guards. The things in front of them were all rare books from hundreds of thousands of years ago. You say you don't want them? That's the real idiot. Although this little trick of Chu Yang's was very straightforward, it was very effective. Therefore, although Great General Meng had given strict orders, the conflicts still continued, and the disturbance continued to escalate. However, in the face of such a situation, even a deity would be powerless. No matter how calm a person was, when he saw a book that was enough to affect his life, that kind of fatal temptation was something that even a deity couldn't resist. Only by controlling this kind of conflict within an extremely small range as much as possible could there be room for mediation. However, the most unexpected thing was that Chu Yang, who had long been confirmed to have come in, and that tribulation godly soul that had caused terrifying deaths and injuries, had completely disappeared at this moment. They couldn't find him at all. There wasn't even any trace of him. This matter was really strange. Could it be that he had melted after coming in? How could he have disappeared so thoroughly? The sounds of fighting all around became more and more intense. The conflicts also became more and more intense. The shouting and cursing between each other was even more incessant. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Immortal Journey YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.